कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तवम् ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पत आनशृण्वन्नोतिभिः सीदसादनम् प्रणो देवी सरस्वती वाजेभिर्वाजिनीवती धीनामवित्रयवतु गणेशाय नमः सरस्वत्यै नमः श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ओम्।
My humble pranams at the lotus feet of our beloved Bhagwan. Participants across Canada, wonderful facilitators, guest speaker Brother Rushi, SSSIO President Uncle Shiva, SSS Vice President Auntie Preeti, National Devotional Team, and core team of this session. Welcome to the 2023 National Bhajan Workshop. I am so incredibly excited for this session, as I know many months of planning have taken place to make this happen. My name is Aishwarya, and I will be your MC for this workshop. Just a quick reminder that if you have joined this session, please rename yourself in this workshop so our team can better identify you. Before we get started, I would like to begin with our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land we all call home is the traditional territory of many diverse First Nations and indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. We are grateful for the many gifts bestowed by this land and acknowledge the treaties and custodianship endowed to the first peoples of this land. As this is our first hybrid workshop, let me explain by what we mean by hybrid. Our Edmonton and York centers have some of their members attending this workshop in person, whereas the rest of us that are online will be attending this obviously online. So in whichever way you have joined us, we are very happy and excited that you are here. Now I'm just going to do a quick rundown of the structure of our time together. So we've just finished opening prayers and we'll go into a welcome address soon. Followed by that, we will have Sai Bhajans as a service as our first segment with a breakout session right after. After that, for 45 minutes, we will be speaking about getting started as an individual in the whole realm of bhajan sessions. And then we will have a lunch and a snack break for 30 minutes. Our third segment, which will be bhajans in private and group settings, will be for 45 minutes. Then we will continue on to our second breakout session, followed by a how to offer our bhajans to Swami, and then our question and answer sessions. We will conclude the program with bhajan resources and tools that you can use with a vote of thanks and closing prayers. A couple of housekeeping items. During the workshop, if you have any questions, please feel free to type it in the chat box and one of the speakers will make a note of it. They will either address it during the respective topic or at the end in the Q&A session. If you are attending in person, please hand over your questions to your center program coordinator who will make sure to communicate these questions to the speakers. We request all our participants to keep their cameras on as we would love to see your beautiful faces. Please note that this is only for our consented individuals. If you have not given your consent, you may keep your camera off. Please make sure that you are muted as we can minimize as much disruption as possible. Now, I would like to invite Auntie Preeti, our SSSIO Canada Vice President, for the welcome address.
Beloved Bhagwan, I place myself at your divine lotus feet. Please accept my loving pranams. My most loving Sai Ram to each and every one of you attending this bhajan workshop offered by the National Devotion Wing of the Sri Sathya Sai International Organization, Canada, led by none other than Sister Kamala and Brother Sridhar. It is said, Bhojan is for the body and Bhajan is for the soul. This afternoon, our special guest and presenter, Rushi Thanawala, along with Sister Janisha, Brothers Sanjay and Erwin, will help us experience this. Swami says there is a big difference between Kirtanam and Sankirtanam. Kirtanam is an individual affair. Sankirtanam aims at the well-being of the whole universe. As you know, our beloved Bhagwan has prescribed Nama Sankirtanam, singing the glory of God in a group. On January 26, 1982, Bhagwan said, singing the name of God by a group of people can help the process of liberation not only for the members of the group, it will also benefit those who listen, and even beyond the circle of listeners, the whole world can benefit from these vibrations. He continued to say, the aim is to experience unity. Singers, musicians must consider group devotional singing as a selfless service. Dear sisters, brothers, children, and young adults, this afternoon we will get an opportunity to understand how we can collectively offer soulful bhajans as a selfless service to the community, to uplift them, strengthen and arouse their connection with the resident divinity in each of them. I pray your participation, coupled with the efforts of the presenters, will help achieve the above. May you enjoy the session and take home learnings. Sai Ram.
Thank you, Auntie Preeti. I now invite Auntie Kamala, our National Devotional Coordinator, to introduce the guest speaker and his team.
My loving salutations at the feet of our dear Bhagwan. Sai Ram, dear sisters and brothers and young adults and children. Welcome to the first National Bhajan Workshop in Canada. First, I would like to thank Sister Preeti for so eloquently putting in words the essence of what we are aiming to achieve here today. Today, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing 4 amazing speakers and presenters who have put together a wonderful workshop for us. I am sure all of you are anxiously waiting for the start of the sessions, so without taking up too much time, I will start with the introductions. I would like to introduce the main speaker for today's workshop, Brother Rushi Thanawala. Brother Rushi Thanawala comes from a family who have been devoted to Bhagwan for more than 55 years. Needless to say that he has been on the Sai path from childhood. He has served in various roles in the SSSIO, including Deputy International YA Coordinator in Philadelphia, Devotional Coordinator in Jersey City, and the co-lead of the International Young Adults Ocean of Music Subcommittee. He currently serves as the Vice President of the Sai Center of Jersey City. He is currently pursuing an MBA while working as a supervisor of bioanalytical research in a leading pharmaceutical company. Brother Rushi's greatest passion is bhajans. He has been singing bhajans, playing the tabla, and composing bhajans since his childhood. He has conducted bhajan workshops in the US and various other countries. Assisting Brother Rushi in the various sessions of the workshop are 3 young adults from various Sai centers in Canada, and I would like to introduce them now. First, we have Brother Sanjay Patel, who is from Toronto, Ontario. He is a family law lawyer and is qualified as the barrister, solicitor, and a notary public in Ontario. Sanjay has previously served as the Regional Spiritual Coordinator for Region 1, as well as the Bhajan Coordinator at the Toronto York Center. Sanjay has sung bhajans and played the harmonium since he was a child. At his core, Sanjay is a Canadian SSE student who practices living the Sai teachings that he has learned. Next, we have Brother Erwin, who is a young adult from Vancouver, British Columbia. For as long as he can remember, he has been a part of the Sai organization. Over the years, he served his region in various capacities as a BC Regional Young Adult Coordinator and currently as a Bhajan Coordinator for the Coquitlam Sai Center. Erwin currently works for the federal government and spends his time outside of work making music. Bhajans and music play an enormous part of Erwin's life, and in today's workshop, he looks forward to sharing his love for it with you. Finally, we have Sister Janisha, who is from the Montreal St. Hubert Sai Center in Quebec. Her involvement at her center has been on various levels. She has served her center as an SSC teacher. She has also taken the lead in organizing several group devotional offerings during special programs at the center. She experiences her spiritual alignment to the divine through devotional singing. She looks forward to sharing this love of music with all of you. I hope all of you enjoy the workshop and will find many takeaways to use in furthering your abilities in bhajan offerings at your respective centers. So without further ado, I will request Brother Rushi to take over and start the session. Om Shri Sai Ram.
Loving Sai Rams, everyone. Invoking the divine blessings and the divine presence of our most beloved Bhagavan Shri Sathya Sai Baba, I offer myself at the divine lotus feet to He who is my Guru, God, and my best friend, to He who is the Nada Brahmam, the sound that we hear by. From Him, to Him, with Him. That is the encapsulation of what Sai Bhajans is. And so we'll start this offering today, this bhajan workshop, with a short invocation to Swami and to Lord Ganesha to remove all the obstacles that may come in our way. Gauri Ganesh, Uma Ganesh, Parvati Nandana Shri Ganesh. Gauri Ganesh, Uma Ganesh, Parvati Nandana Shri Ganesh. Sharanam Ganesh, Sharanam Ganesh, Sharanam Ganesh, Sharanam Ganesh. Shivanandana Ganapati Ganesh, Shivanandana Ganapati Ganesh. Gauri Ganesh, Uma Ganesh, Parvati Nandana Shri Ganesh.
Saram, everyone. Before we get started today, something that we want to think about besides, Brother Rushi sounds so nice when he sings bhajans, is stuff that we will actually go over today for this workshop. So we will be talking about how when you sing a bhajan, it has to involve proper pronunciation, clearly identified notes, precise timing and rhythm, feeling for each words and phrase, understanding the meaning, and full effort from beginning to end. So in this workshop, with Swami's grace, we want to learn as a Sai family how to sing bhajans from scratch, in an effort to uplift ourselves and the energy that surrounds us. We will break down the nuances of how someone can start singing a bhajan from the first time on their own at home to being ready and knowing the responsibilities of singing at the Sai Center. So let's get started.
So, Swami has started so many different service projects. He has had the schools, the universities, the hospitals, Grama Seva, and so many different institutions. He has created the Sri Sathya Sai International Organization, the Central Trust, the India Organization, and so many different facets of his divinity have been expressed by him through various institutions that he himself has created. But one thing we tend to forget is that Sai Bhajan itself is an institution created by Bhagavan Shri Sathya Sai Baba. Sai Bhajans is a unique genre of music on itself. Yes, we praise Swami for all of the service projects and all of the leelas, and of course Swami's created this entire universe that we are currently living in and experiencing. But we tend to forget at times that Sai Bhajans, this whole institution of Sai Bhajans has been created by Swami himself. Such bhajans, such kind of music is not to be found anywhere else in the world. Just at first glance, from whatever limited knowledge I have, I believe Sai Bhajans is the only genre of music in which every single line of the musical piece is followed in chorus by the entire congregation. Yes, we have kavalis and gospel singing and the Sikh Shabad Kirtans, but in all of those genres, it is usually that the refrain or the main chorus stanza of every song is repeated by the congregation or by the members at large. It is only in Sai Bhajans that the entire offering, the entire rendition of a given musical piece becomes a congregational effort. And so we are so blessed that, yes, while Swami has done so much for this universe, he has created this universe, he has single-handedly pioneered his own genre of music that is unique to the Sai world. Today, if we travel to a different country, for example, if I travel to Malaysia, I may not be able to speak Malay. If I go to the Kuala Lumpur Sai Center, I may not have the linguistic ability to say hello to somebody in the Kuala Lumpur Sai Center. I may say Sairam, but I cannot even have a conversation with them. But if I go to the Kuala Lumpur Sai Center and I start singing Manas Bhajre Guru Charanam Dustar Bhava Sagar Taranam, every single member of that congregation will be able to follow the bhajan. I may not be able to have even one sentence of a conversation with them, but they can follow an entire bhajan that I'm singing. This is the beauty of Sai Bhajans, that unites us as one globe and has brought so many people into the fold of Bhagavan Shri Sathya Sai Baba. As it can be said that bhajans are the gateway into the world, into this enigma of that is Bhagavan Shri Sathya Sai Baba. Next slide, please. As Swami himself has mentioned in various discourses and interviews and sessions with the Prashanti Bhajan group, to whom we owe a lot of gratitude because a lot of this content is taken from their workshops, and we owe our gratitude to them for all the road that they've laid ahead for us. So according to Swami, this Sai Bhajans originates from the times of Guru Nanak 500, 600 years ago. Guru Nanak, who is the writer of the Guru Granth Sahib and, he's the initiator of the Sikh faith, he initiated group devotional singing by the means of Shabad Kirtans. And these were either songs composed by Guru Nanak Dev Ji or his successors, the 10 Gurus. These songs were sung in congregation by various devotees. And they would be sung to bring people together, and then Guru Nanak would give sermons about, the teachings that he wanted to propagate. And so even today we have songs such as Guru Meri Puja Guru Govind, Guru Mera Par Brahma Guru Bhagavant. So this is where the Sai Bhajans started to originate. The evolution of Sai Bhajans, though Swami has created Sai Bhajans and institutionalized Sai Bhajans in the 20th century, we see its origins many, many centuries ago. After Guru Nanak, so when Guru Nanak was there, these songs, as I just sang Guru Meri Puja, these were long songs. They were filled with a lot of feeling and a lot of emotion and a lot of understanding about God. It was a glimpse into the quest of the human soul to see what is God, why are we here to achieve Him. A few centuries later was the advent of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We may commonly know of his existence through the International Society of Krishna Consciousness. Their devotees go about singing the glories of Krishna and Rama. they have the Mahamantra, the 16-word Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And so, this combination of music that started by Guru Nanak, and then we have this Nama Sankirtana, the singing of the divine names, a repetition of the divine names that was propagated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is where the genesis of Sai Bhajans lies. And of course, after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we have had so many sages and seers such as Mirabai and Saint Tyagaraja, and so many people even around the world, so many Sufi saints, Sant Kabir Das, who have lent their energy, lent their love to this institution of devotional singing, of offering music to God. And so this is an ancient tradition. This is a tradition with ancient origins and modern applications. What these folks started, Swami crystallized into a consistent format. Every bhajan we sing at the Sai Center has a consistent format. We have the first speed in which every single line is sung twice, and the second speed in which every single line is sung once, and of course the last line is sung twice to indicate the end of the bhajan. And sometimes we take these small things for granted. The formats of Sai Bhajans are ingrained in us as Bal Vikas students. But we begin to understand as we study Sai Bhajans more and more, we begin to understand that this is not a coincidence. Swami has thought so much and put so much love and effort into creating Sai Bhajans what it is. Just as I touched on the format of a Sai Bhajan, the first speed, right? Even if someone doesn't know a bhajan, in the first speed, each line is repeated twice. And this is actually how Vedam used to be taught even now and in thousands of years ago in Gurukulas. The way Veda chanting would be taught is that the Guru, the preceptor, would sing one line. So he would say, Om Sadhyo Jatam Prapadhyami Satyo Jataya Vai Namo Namaha. And then his students would repeat that twice. Om Sadhyo Jatam Prapadhyami Sadhyo Jataya Vai Namo Namaha. Om Sadhyo Jatam Prapadhyami Sadhyo Jataya Vai Namo Namaha. And so we can see that why are we repeating each line of a bhajan twice? Technically 4 times if you count the lead and the chorus, because that is a way of repetitive learning. And so by the time, even if you don't know the bhajan, you've heard every line 4 times. By the time we get into the second speed, you've already learned the bhajan, and in the second speed with full gusto, we can sing along. And so the Sai Bhajans is a genre of music. This genre, it's not just a genre of music. Sai Bhajans is literally can become a lifestyle. And we'll get into that a little later into this workshop as to how we can achieve that. But if we say Sai Bhajans is our life, out of curiosity, how many Sai Bhajans can we fit in one lifetime? So back in 12th grade, I was taking a calculus class in which we had to do like a real life calculus applications project. And, you could do it on anything. Some people tried to do like a curve on how fast their phone charged. So I did my practical applications project on Sai Bhajans. I attended Sai Bhajan sessions. I listened to over, I would say, 500 bhajans over the course of that project. And for example, I made differential graphs and equations on how fast the average tempo of a bhajan session goes from the start of the session till the end. And part of that project, I tried to figure out what is the average length of a Sai Bhajan. And of course, there's various answers to this. Some may say 3 minutes, some may say 6 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. From the data of 500 bhajans that I collected, and of course, I make sure to include the occasional 3rd and 4th speed and, one or two alaps here and there. But the average length of a Sai Bhajan from that project that I did 11 years ago ended up being about 3 minutes 45 seconds. That's 3.75 minutes. And so, there's this popular song, if you ever watched the musical Rent, 525,600 minutes. How do you measure a year? Measure in love. Measure in love. So 1 year has 525,600 minutes. If we divide that number by 3.75, 1 year, if we did Akhanda Bhajan starting at midnight on January 1st until 11:59 p.m. on December 31st, we could accommodate approximately 140,160 bhajans. 140,160 bhajans. That is a huge number. And it is a huge number because Sai Bhajans are meant to be short. They are meant to be small bits of information that we are all, they're meant to be memorized, and we'll get into that a little bit later as well as to why Sai Bhajans need to be memorized, when, especially when we are singing, rendering them, offering them as lead singers. So whenever we celebrate New Year's, we can think of it as a new book, a new bhajan, a new blank bhajan book is opened with 140,160 chances to sing the glory of our beloved Bhagwan. How many of those we take is left, the onus is left in our hands. And therefore, one entire human lifespan, if we look at statistics from the World Health Organization, the human lifespan is about 79, average human lifespan around the world is about 79 years. So if we do the math, this lifetime that Swami has given us is enough to sing 11,200,000 Sai Bhajans. And once again, let us always question ourselves, let us always ponder, how many of these 11, Swami has given me not one chance, not two chances, but 11 million chances to sing his divine glory. How many of those chances will I take? The onus lies on us. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, this is the only genre of music where the entire piece is repeated by the singer and the chorus. And Sai Bhajans unite people all over the world. I recently had an experience. We have I live in New Jersey, and in New York City, we have a Sai center that is solely for people of Hispanic heritage. And so they only speak Spanish in that center. All of their prayers at that center are done in Spanish. Even the Aarti, some of you may or may not know this, but even the Aarti is composed in Spanish there. Gloria a ti, mi Señor, hacedor de toda la vida, como la luna tranquila, con tu dulzura iluminas la luz de nuestro corazón. Gloria a ti, mi Señor. But even when I've attended that Sai Center twice, and I don't know that many Spanish bhajans. Of course, we have the popular, Señor, Señor, Shivanataraja, we have Ven mi Sai Brahma, and a few others, right? But we don't know that many. So the two times I ended, of course, I sang two bhajans. The one time I attended the center, and the first bhajan I sang one time I went was Sai Madre Compasiva, Madre Universal, Madre Mia. And of course, the chorus was great by the congregation. But then I went ahead and I sang, the second bhajan I sang in that session was Dum 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 Arubaji. And they followed that bhajan with even more gusto. So even those who we may not be able to have a conversation with, we can converse with them using this language, using this institution of Sai Bhajans. The bhajans that we sing in America, in Canada, in Zone 1 are being sung. The same exact bhajans are being sung all over the world. And that is why it is important to remember that Sai Bhajans has a format. It has a frame that we need to follow, so that language of Sai Bhajans remains consistent. And myself and my brothers and sisters will go over as to how and why we should maintain that consistency when we're singing different Sai Bhajans. And there's a global phenomenon that's popular everywhere around the world. Even different religious organizations, different spiritual organizations have taken Sai Bhajans and made them their own. For example, you have like the whole field of Ganapati Sachidananda Swami. They've taken a lot of Sai Bhajans. The Art of Living, Shri Shri Ravi Shankar, they've taken a lot of Sai Bhajans and they've sung them. Because Sai Bhajans, this idea of singing the name of the Lord, has become so popular and so powerful that devotees are just coming and singing and melting themselves away in this divine bliss.
Awesome. Thank you. before we dive a little bit deeper into what you need to do for bhajans to be able to sing like Rushi Bhai, let's test a little bit about your knowledge about bhajans itself. So just give me a moment here. I will pull up a Kahoot slide, and we shall get started. Okay, can everybody see my screen? All right, so if you have a phone at your disposal, please take a look at the screen. You can even use your camera to scan the QR code, which sits right here. Give me a moment. Oh, there we go. Starting to see people come in.
And Brother Sridhar has dropped the link in the Zoom chat as well.
Perfect. Wow, we're seeing lots of people. Awesome. We'll give you guys about another 30 to 40 seconds, and then we'll get started. Okay. All right, final 20 seconds here. Final 10 seconds, sorry. All right, let's get started. Okay, first things first. Today's session for Kahoot is, we'll just have a little bit of fun. So fun's with Sai Bhajans, just like Swami is having fun there with all the kids. The first question is just a mock question. So just so that you guys know how to find your answers, please find the green button and select it. Get 7 more seconds. Perfect. One more answer needed. Oh, awesome. 2 people chose 2 different colors. Okay, let's actually get started here. True or false? The first bhajan sung by Swami was Manasa Bhajare Guru Charanam. Five more seconds. True. Interesting. Brother Rishi, what do we have to say about this?
So, this was a trick question, and sorry for throwing the curveball at the first bat. But in fact, it can be concluded based on historical context that Manasa Bhajare was not the first bhajan sung by Swami, because Manasa Bhajare was sung by Swami when he was 14 years old in the year 1940. When Swami was 8 years old, there was a cholera epidemic that had infected the village of Puttaparthi. People were dying off because of this cholera.
I'm done with the kitchen. If she wants to do anything, go ahead.
Sorry, we do ask if you have your mic on, please mute yourself.
So, at that time when this cholera epidemic had struck Puttaparthi, Swami would go to his grandfather's house, make hot rasam, and give it out to all of the villagers as a medicine, as a cure. And he collected a group of young boys. They all got dressed in yellow cloth, and they would yellow clothes, and they would go about the village singing bhajans. And one of the bhajans they used to sing, today we know it as Jaya Panduranga Prabho Vittala, but in fact it used to be sung a little. Swami used to sing it a little differently. He would just start straight with Rang Vitthala Panduranga Vitthala, Rang Vitthala Panduranga Vitthala, Rang Vitthala Panduranga Vitthala. And so, based on this historical context, we can conclude that Swami did sing other bhajans before Manasa Bhajare Guru Charanam.
Awesome, thank you. Okay. Next question. What was Swami's first bhajan group called? Number 1, Prashanti Bhajan Group, Sundaram Bhajan Group, Padmavati Bhajan Group, or Pandari Bhajan Group? Okay. The correct answer is Pandari Bhajan Group. So most of you got that one. What was Swami's first... that should not be there. 1 second. According to Swami, what exactly does Akhanda Bhajan mean? Singing to please the Lord, singing continuously in God's name, singing in chorus, global singing after Deepavali or Diwali. That's correct. That's correct. Brother Sanjay, you still playing? What is Swami's advice on how the name of the Lord should be sung while singing bhajans? Loud and full-throated. Everybody should want a chance to sing a bhajan. Sing with lots of variation. Sing to make people cry. Lock your answers in. You got 7 seconds. Yes, although everybody should want to have the chance to lead a bhajan, no, Swami wants us to sing loud and full-throated. Next one. True or false? Swami's ideal atmosphere for a bhajan session is one where everyone sits quietly and contemplates on the Lord. Wow, a lot of fast people here. 3 seconds. Ooh. Brother Sanjay, Sister Janisha, anybody want to take a chance at explaining this?
No, can't be quiet, right? It's gonna have to be vibrant and loud and full-throated. Probably in line with the other answer, I'd say false.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, sitting down in bhajans and being quiet is actually not the reason why you're there, and we will learn about that later on. So this is a good precursor.
And in fact, if I may just add, in one of the interviews with the Prashanti Bhajan group, Swami had mentioned that it is the dharma of every single person sitting in the congregation to sing full-throated and sing with clapping hands and sing the glory of God together. So that is our duty when we sit in a bhajan session.
Perfect. Okay. What are tabla skins made of? Carbon fiber, fabric, goat hide, snake skin. goat hide is the correct answer. It's the only part of the Sai Center that's non-vegetarian. Next. What is the most important instrument during a bhajan session? Brother Rushi?
Of course, clapping is the most important instrument in a bhajan session. If we have just a harmonium and tabla and one singer, while it may sound musically really nice, but think about the early morning sessions in Prashanti or when we have retreats. There's really not much instrumental support, but just a group of people singing loud throated with clapping hands and that vibrance. Even if we didn't have harmoniums and tablas, just with clapping, it would be become a very vibrant bhajan session.
Awesome. We've got a couple more questions, I believe, here. What continent does the harmonium originate from? Antarctica, Asia, Europe, or Africa? Most of you thought it was Asia. Rushi, what did we find out the other day?
Yeah, we actually didn't know this ourselves. We were looking up online encyclopedias, and yeah, actually the harmonium originated in Europe, potentially France or Germany, and through all the colonization that has happened over the centuries, slowly made its way to India, through various iterations and evolutions, of course.
100%. Okay, the last one's just a poll. There's no exact answer, but what is your favorite extra melodic instrument in a bhajan session? Oh, the flute. Interesting. Nice. Let's move on to the next one. And another poll. What is your favorite extra percussive instrument in bhajans? Outside of the tabla. Yes. Awesome. Thank you. And it looks like we have some winners for today. Sister Kripa, Sister Arti, and Brother Srinivas. Nice. Good job, everyone. Thank you for participating. Okay. One moment, please. Okay.
So after we've broken the ice a little bit, thank you, Brother Erwin, for leading us through that little game. Why are we gathered here? What is the purpose of doing this workshop? And why do we do bhajans together? Why can't I just, so many questions. Why can't I just sit here at my home altar and sing bhajans to Swami all day? It is the combination of satsang and kirtanam, this congregational singing that is known as Sankirtanam. As Swami said, Samyak Kirtanam iti Sankirtanam. Singing together, congregational singing of bhajans is the best form of devotion, the best form of devotional singing. And this bhajans, when we sing together, aims at the well-being of the whole universe. And when we say, oh, the vibrations of the bhajans are spreading all over the globe, all over the universe, that truly has scientific backing to it. It's not just us saying empty phrases. The way you can hear me right now is that there's physical atoms of oxygen, hydrogen, and nitrogen moving in front of my mouth that are going through this microphone and then coming out from your speakers. And then once again, atoms of hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen are moving in front of the speakers. And then that vibration, that very physical movement, is hitting your eardrums, and that is being translated by your brain as sound. And so when we say we're doing bhajans for the welfare of all humanity, it is true that these physical vibrations that we are producing, it though we may not realize it, are touching hearts all over the world. And so that's why Swami has said, wherever my devotees sing, I install myself. Mad bhakta yatra gayanti tatra tishtami tatra sthapayami, as Swami has said. I don't just come there, I come and install myself there. Because from where those vibrations originate, that is so attractive and so loved by our beloved Bhagwan. Over to you, Sister Janisha.
Thank you, Sarah. So when we look at the importance of Sankirtanam itself, Kirtanam is basically the individual devotional singing, whereas Sankirtanam, as we just mentioned, is basically the offering as a group itself. And so we've heard it under different names, such as satsang, which is basically singing in unison. So the congregational singing is the best because, as we've also mentioned earlier, it aims for the well-being of the universe. And Sankirtana help us to connect all together. And with an open mindset, an open heart, we must allow it because we connect to the divine light and love by uplifting that conscious network that we offer during bhajans. So imagine all of us on that same frequency. Won't we just be inspiring each other during a bhajan session to feel that love, to attain that kind of vibration? And it just uplifts the entire offering and makes it to a different level. So Swami says that wherever my devotees sing, there I install myself. And a really nice quote that we would have follow next is, what then is the essence of Sankirtanam? So its essential purpose is to earn the love of God, combining one's voice, tune, feeling, and rhythm to the appropriate beat of the song. The devotee should immerse himself or herself in the singing, harmonizing the feeling with devotion and love. The sacred words of song should be an outpouring of love towards God. That alone is devotional singing. Sarah. So there are different forms of Sankirtanam that express specific descriptions of the divine. And Swami has listed 4 types of Sankirtanam. And we also find that different bhajans would fall like either in one of those categories or more of them. So the first one is Guna Sankirtanam. So it's listed basically the attributes and the qualities of God. And one example here I can give you is Sundara Vadani Suguna Manohari. And that is basically giving the one, is describing the one with good qualities that have a beautiful and charming face. The second one that we have is Leela Sankirtanam. Leela Sankirtanam describes the actions of God. So a good example here is Brahmandanayaka Baba. And this is the creator of the entire universe. I will let Brother Sanjay follow for the 2 others.
Saram, 2 others, the last 2 types of Sankirtanam, Bhava Sankirtanam, essentially expressing feeling or devotion, love towards God. The examples they have are Sai Ram, Sai Sham, Sahara Do Bhagavan. So very emotionally felt bhajans. Nama Sankirtanam is the 4th and final type, singing the names of gods. These are normally upbeat, very vibrant bhajans, very easy to understand bhajans. Hari Om Namah Shivaya. We know that the most common Sai Bhajans are most commonly this is the genre. Ram Hare Sai Krishna Hare Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru Ji Bolo. So together, as Priti Aunty said in the very beginning, and that's really the key of this, is Sankirtan is the key word. So when we go into the next slide, please. Essentially, this is the bit, and I know Rushi brother mentioned it in the beginning, but when we're together, we often hear this comment that it was nice vibrations today in the bhajan, right? So that vibration we're learning is a real phenomena. And so I think of in a practical way like a microwave, where I can't maybe see the vibration, but I know it has some effect. In the same way, when we're sitting in the bhajan hall, it has some effect on myself. I also think of the late and great Dr. DJ Gadia, who used to talk about Laksharchan and used to talk about efficiency in the Laksharchan. And they would talk about in the span of one Omkar, if you sit on your own, that's one Omkar. But if I sit with all 200 of us in the span of one time, I've sung it 200 times and I get the power of 200 times. So after 3 Omkar, that's really 600 times vibration that I'm getting. So Sankirtan is a big one. Next slide, please. Sister Janisha, you can take over.
Yes, thank you. I was trying to unmute my mic. Perfect. So next, since we're talking about bhajan, we wanted to make it spice up in the concept of tuning in and listening to specific melodies. So we have a small game right now that we would share with you, and it's very simple. So Brother Sanjay will be basically playing the melodies on the harmonium, and he will be playing the first and the second line. So you would have to simply pay attention and listen in order to guess which bhajan would be played. Once you have the answer, so you'll be given a short time for those who are online to specifically type the first few words of the bhajan. And for those who are in person, we invite you to discuss with your peers what would that bhajan be. Okay, so those in person wouldn't need to actually send an answer through the chats. And so we have a total of 8 bhajan to guess. Next slide, please. So to first start, we have 2 trials. And I'll let Brother Sanjay start with the first one. All right, so yes. Oh, wow, you guys are quick. Awesome. Jai Guru Omkara, Jai Jai. That's the actual first bhajan. And Erwin Bhai, if you can just click, the answer would appear. Click yeah, voila. Awesome. And we'll have a second try.
Before we jump into the second try, I do see people writing on the screen. If we can get you
okay,
to erase that, please.
Oh, sorry.
Whoever that is. Thank you.
I thought that was you. So simply type in the group chat. You don't need to write on the screen.
Second trial.
Thank you. Yes. That's a difficult one for those. So, Janani Devi Dayamai. And that should be on a click, Erwin. Right after you, that should appear. There we go. So that's basically how it's going to work. So let's start with the first bhajan itself. Baba mere. It sounds almost like it, yeah. So bear in mind, some melodies do resemble.
That was the second line.
Yes, that helped playing the second line. Thank you. All to the bhajan number 2. Great, good job, guys. The bhajan number 2, brother, when you're ready.
Oh.
Yes. Very good. Hari Naam Gaate Chalo. Hari Naam gaate chalo. That is correct. Okay, you ready? Yes, oh yes, Uncle Shiva, that's good. So, He Nirakari Allah, He Avatari. That's the actual bhajan, sorry. Yes, so a lot of you actually are getting this right. And for sure, melodies are going to resemble, so you will definitely hear
More than one can fit, yeah.
more than one, exactly. To the next slide, please. Thank you. So, bhajan number 4. Yes, this is good. Om Namah Shivaya. Great, great guess, guys. That was a simple one. Yes, uncle. Yes, brother. Oh, yeah. That's exactly. Jai Jai Hanuman, Jai Hanuman. That is the correct answer. Wow. You guys are good. You guys are good. 3 more to go. We're almost there. Bhajan number. It is a Ganesh bhajan indeed. Kahe gajanan dina vana. Oh, well done. And 2 more to go. Allahu tum, yes, very good. Allahu tum, Ishwar bhi tum. You guys are actually. This one is an English bhajan. Yes, a couple of you are getting this right. So, remind me, my Lord, remind me, my Lord. So, well done to all of you. Hope for those who are in person were able to guess all of them. I thank you all for your participation, and we will be continuing with the importance of satsang itself.
So we've been talking about satsang and why the beauty of singing bhajans together, but why is it important? So one example that actually comes to my mind that's not on our slides is Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in one of his sunnahs or commandments to his disciples, to his devotees, said that the Friday prayer that the Muslims do, the Jummah prayer, is obligatory because it is obligatory for that prayer to be done in a group setting, and that every individual that adds on to the session multiplies the spiritual benefit of that session by 27-fold, similar to what Brother Sanjay had mentioned about chanting Om together or the Laksharchana. So why is it important to do satsang together? So consider a nighttime ride. We're all taking a group pilgrimage from Canada to Prashanti Nilayam, and we are all gathered at the Bangalore airport, and we all have to get to Puttaparthi, and we're all getting into a convoy of 20 to 30 cars, and we're all making our way together to Prashanti Nilayam. Next slide, please. Our flight is landed at night, and so we're traveling in our own cars in the nighttime. And if we were traveling alone, we're going along, and our headlights go out, and it's completely dark. You're stuck in some Brahmanapalli, Yamunapalli, some village that lands up on National Highway 7 on the way from Bangalore to Puttaparthi. What do? You're completely in the dark. Next slide. But if you're going together as a convoy, even if your headlights go out, the headlights of all the other cars will show you the way. There's plenty of light to show the way to Prashanti Nilayam. And so, this is the importance of satsang. When we are doing our sadhana at home alone, as an individual, we may get distracted. But when we are surrounded by hundreds of loving individuals who are singing together for the listening pleasure of Swami, and we're sitting feeling those vibrations in the Sai Center, then it is very difficult to become distracted. Next slide, please. And so when we speak of devotion, Swami has in our Hindu scriptures, we have they've been laid out 9 in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 9 different forms of devotion. And of the 9 forms of devotion, if we think about it, 8 of them are only self-beneficiary or benefiting one other person. For example, Shravanam, I cannot listen on someone's behalf. Or Padasevanam, if I'm pressing Swami's feet, only I will reap the benefit, or I will reap the joy of it. Sure, I can narrate my experience to someone and they can live vicariously through me, but they won't be able to have that same experience. Or Atmanivedanam, of course, at the end of the day, while we're doing this all together as a sadhana, at the end when we attain merger with Swami, it is all one soul, right? So we cannot experience Atmanivedanam as a group. But Kirtanam is the only form of devotion that can be done as a group. And we'll get into an example on the next slide. If you Kirtanam is the only form of devotion that can be performed as a group, because the one who is singing gets a benefit, the one who is listening is benefited, the one who is following, playing instruments, we are all benefited from one person's devotional practice. So many people are benefited by devotional singing. As Swami has said, bhajan singing is those who sing bhajans get what can be called a double promotion, for they derive joy and they're also giving joy to others. Next slide, please. And so one example that I like to think of is, think of an old Indian village. You have Nanda Maharaj in Vrindavan, Lord Krishna's foster father. And at night, there is no electricity. So everyone lights their lamps, and that's how people go about living their evenings. And so back in the day, 5,000 years ago, not everybody had, matches or means to start a fire. So Nanda Maharaj would light the lamp and keep it at the threshold of the house, so that all the gopas and gopikas could come and light their lamps using the lamp that was kept at the threshold of the house of Nanda Maharaj. And so bhajans is like, the tongue is the threshold to our being. And so when the light of the Lord, the name of the Lord, illumines our tongue and sits on our tongue, it not only illumines us inside, but it also illumines us, those around us. And sometimes what would happen is, when the gopikas would come to light their home lamp using the lamp at Nanda Maharaj's house, they would see Krishna in that flame and they would touch it and lose themselves in that light. And so bhajans have that capability. Even if we are listening to somebody sing a bhajan, when we feel Swami's presence, when we feel that celestial experience in Swami's name, in that divine melody, we lose ourselves. Next slide, please. And as I described, bhajan fully allows us to merge in Krishna. And this tongue is the threshold of the house that is his body, the house, the temple that is having God inside. God is residing in all our hearts. And so it illumines us both inside and the outside. Next slide. And so it is important that we continue to sing bhajans unceasingly, as Swami is imploring in this beautiful graphic here. If we continue to sing bhajans, we'll always be in constant remembrance of his divine name. If we have to just chant Sai Ram, Sai Ram, Sai Ram, Sai Ram, Sai Ram, it may get monotonous to our mundane human minds. Of course, the name Sai Ram has so much power. But when we sing it with tune, right, as Brother Sanjay just sang that bhajan beautifully, Sai Ram, Sai Sham, our minds become attached. And let us now go into a breakout session. Let us discuss how we can introduce bhajans into our lives, how we can become one, how can we lose ourselves in the glory of Sai through Sai Bhajans.
Had some meaningful discussions in their breakout rooms. Just another friendly reminder to please rename yourself with your first and your last name. If you click on the icon with 3 dots on your camera screen, there is a rename option. This is to avoid any confusion, and we can put you in proper rooms for our second breakout sessions. Now that we have learned about the energy in bhajans and the personal qualities about a bhajan singer and instrumentalists, we will now be starting on bhajans, getting started as an individual. So Brother Rushi, you can take it away.
Thank you, Sister Aishwarya. So getting started as an individual in bhajans, as you all discussed in the breakout sessions about the personal sadhana that we all need to undertake to become the ideal lead bhajan singer. Wanted to add a couple points. The example of a reservoir system. So in a city, a small city, you have a reservoir that holds the drinking and potable water for the entire city. And from that reservoir, through pipes, the water is distributed to all the homes. In this context, Swami represents a reservoir, and the water inside represents Swami's love. And all the homes in this city represent us, the individual, the devotees. And inside each home, of course, resides Swami again. So where's the lead singer in all this? So the lead singer is that conduit pipe, the main pipe that emerges from the reservoir and then splits into little pipes that then enter into each home to distribute the love of Swami. So that lead singer is a conduit pipe. He or she is the one who is bringing Swami's love from the reservoir to everyone else. So as a lead singer, we all need to have undergo that sadhana, have discipline, and do all of the spiritual practices and physical practices that were mentioned in this breakout session to be ideal conduits of Swami's love. Next slide, please. So one of the most important sadhanas that we have to do, the starting point of learning a Sai Bhajan, how do we get started? As I had prefaced earlier, memorizing the Sai Bhajan, memorizing a bhajan, if you're going to lead it, is paramount. Yes, I understand that we show the bhajan lyrics on a screen or we distribute bhajan books, but let it be understood that the screen projection, while it is very important, the books, while they are very important, they are meant for the chorus singers. The lead singer should have the bhajans memorized because the lyrics are the foundation of every Sai Bhajans. As we had mentioned earlier, Sai Bhajans are short, 4 to 8 lines long, and they are meant to be memorized. A little foray into clinical psychology, we talk about chunk memorization. Sai Bhajans are small chunks of information that are easy for our brain to memorize. If I were to give you a string of numbers, 1123111926, that string of numbers might be meaningless. And if I say, hey, regurgitate that same sequence of numbers back to me, you might not even remember. But if I chunk it together in segments, 23, 11, 1926, it's easier to remember. And because Sai Bhajans are small bits of information, they are easy for us to remember. I guarantee you, if you listen to a Sai Bhajan intently, within 5 or 6 times, you will have the entire bhajan memorized. So memorizing the bhajans is the main foundation that we have to do. Because and I've had this experience when I've been in musical offerings and we're singing long devotional songs where it's kind of impossible to memorize the lyrics. So we have the lyrics, we're trying to focus on the lyrics, focusing on the sound, how, the bhava, ragata. There's so many moving components in a musical offering. But in bhajans, which is different from songs, it's different from musical offering. When we have the lyrics memorized, that's one obstacle, that's one moving part taken out, and our ability to focus on Swami and ability to focus on the bhava is enhanced by memorizing the lyrics. Next slide, please. So, as I mentioned, it is very important to memorize the bhajans, so that the main goal of memorizing is so that we can focus on the bhava, raga, and tala. As Swami has said, Bharata. Bharat is not just a name for India. It's not just another name for the country of India. Bha, as Swami has explained, stands for Bhagavan, and Rati stands for closeness. So a true Bharatiya one who is in true bhava, raga, and tala. A Bharatiya is one who is close to God. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's somebody residing in the Indian subcontinent. So it's very important to memorize the lyrics of bhajan so that we can focus on these three aspects. Next slide, please. Another important reason as to why bhajan lyrics should be memorized is so that we can focus on what every single word means. Every word of a Sai Bhajan is a treasure trove of meaning. In one of the interviews that Swami had with the Prashanti Bhajan group, Swami mentioned that if we really sang one bhajan with the complete feeling, with the complete understanding of what that bhajan means, we would not be able to finish the bhajan because we would end up in tears of devotion. And so every word of a Sai Bhajan is pregnant with meaning. Words such as Krishna, Rama, and Sai, they're not just merely names. Of course, they're very powerful names. Just the name of God has so much potency in it. But the words, those names themselves have meaning. For example, Krishna. In Sanskrit, Krishyate iti Krishnaha means the one who is all attractive is Krishna. Sai, Sa meaning divine, Ai meaning mother. So that is the divine mother, Sai. Or as Shirdi Baba, in the time of Shirdi Sai Baba, when Shirdi Baba arrived in Shirdi, the devotees started addressing him as Sai, 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 meaning God is the one who is God. So these words have such beautiful meaning. Every word has an importance to it. Next slide, please. And because these words are so important, it is important that we pronounce the words correctly. As we said, the lyrics, the words are the building blocks of a Sai Bhajans. So just a few funny examples here, right? Why is it important to have pronunciation of every single word correct? Is because if we mispronounce a word here or there, we might end up changing the meaning of a bhajan. So, for example, Bhayankara versus Abhayankara. Bhayankara means the one who causes fear. Abhayankara is the one who removes all the fear. So sometimes if we have bhajans such as Shankara Bhayankara. One time I heard an individual say that Shankara Bhayankara, and that's totally meaning Shankara is the one who gives fear, but it should be Shankara Abhayankara. And that's why pronunciation, but also enunciation of every syllable is very important. And then, of course, Charanam versus Sharanam. I think this is a common one that we all encounter. And I myself make this mistake so many times. For example, Pratasmaranam Shri Guru Charanam. The last line is Charanam, Sharanam Sai Charanam. Charanam, Sharanam, Sai Charanam. Charanam, Sharanam means I offer I am, Charanam is lotus feet, Sharanam is surrender. So I surrender at the lotus feet of Sai and I surrender to him. I surrender in his name. Another one that someone asked me about recently is Phalanetra versus Bhalanetra. For example, there's a bhajan, Sundaranana, Sundaranana. Phalanetra Madana Mohana Sundaranana. So Phalanetra or Bhalanetra. So while in context they might mean the same thing, from a literal standpoint, they actually mean two different things. So both refer to Shiva's third eye, the divine third eye. But what does Phalanetra mean? Phal is a Sanskrit word for fiery or sparks flying out. So it is describing the third eye as the eye that is powerful. It has so much light emitting from it. Versus Bhalanetra means, Bhal means forehead. So it means the eye which is centered in the forehead. So while they're referring to the same thing, the two words have different meanings. Another one is Heramba. Heramba means the mother of Ganesha. There's a beautiful Ganesh bhajan that goes, He Gananatha Gajanana Heramba Gajanana. But that word Heramba, if mispronounced as Heramba, can mean a very, very negative term. that we don't want to pronounce in a bhajan session. So in some cases, the lyrics of bhajans have been actually changed by Swami. In 2008, the students were singing this bhajan. He Ramba Janani Shri Sai Janani. Swami said, change the lyrics to He Vishwa Janani Shri Sai Janani. Or also tu versus tum, right? So we have there's a bhajan. Rama Krishna Prabhu tu, He Ram. But if the tu is mispronounced, it may sound as tu, which is again a negatively connotated word. It means almost you're spitting on something. So we don't want to say that in a bhajan session. So the bhajans where the word tu is used, we should make sure we're saying it as tu and not with emphasis like tu. And that is why some bhajans have been changed. For example, Rama Krishna Prabhu tu has been now changed to Rama Krishna tum ho, Jaya Ram, Jaya Ram. And there are some bhajans that Swami himself has indicated various lyrics changes. For example, this is available on YouTube. There is a video of Swami in Trai Brindavan in his Whitefield ashram. He's having a session with the students, and Swami asks one of the students to sing this bhajan, a beautiful one. Raghupati Raghava Raja Rama. Then the Dasharatanandana Raja Rama, Kaushalyatmaj Sundara Rama, Rama Rama Jai Raja Rama, Raghava Mohana Megha Shyama. And Swami stops the student there and says it's not Raghava Mohana Megha Shyama. It is Shamala Komala Megha Shyama. Rama Rama Jai Raja Rama, Shamala Komala Megha Shyama. And the reason why is because Raghava means Rama and Mohana means beloved. So of course, how can you say that Rama is the beloved of Rama? But when you say Shamala Komala, he's the one who is one of the skin, the complexion of the dark rain clouds. Komala, he's soft and loving. So it is important that we understand what every single word of every single bhajan means. Next slide, please. So once that we've understood what every word means, how do we translate that into developing bhava in a bhajan session? So one of my favorite techniques here is picturization. You can take a Sai Bhajan and turn it into a little story. And of course, for this to happen, you have to have the lyrics memorized. If you don't have the lyrics memorized, how are you going to have this picturization running through your head, this visualization? And you have to know what every word means. If you don't know what every word means, then how will you be able to create an image in your mind? So once you've accomplished memorization and understanding of the words, then you can undertake some techniques such as picturization to develop bhava in a bhajan session. I'll give a quick example here. There's this beautiful bhajan. Shiva Shiva Shambho, Hare Hare Shambho, Sai Shambho Shankara. You can see how beautifully these bhajans are composed. The way the tune is written, the way the words are spaced out, evokes certain types of emotion. So imagine all of us we're discussing in a group and someone comes up with the idea of saying, hey, let's take a pilgrimage to Mount Kailasha. So we say, okay, Shiva Shiva Shambho, Hare Hare Shambho, Sai Shambho, Shankara. We're discussing, hey, why don't we go? Why don't we go to Mount Kailasha? Why don't we go and have darshan of Lord Shiva? Next slide. And then someone asks, when we go, what is there to see? What is there? Why should we go all the way to Mount Kailash to have Lord Shiva's darshan? Then somebody replies saying, Vyagrambar Dhar Vibhuti Sundar Sai Shambho Shankara. When we go to Kailasha, we will see Lord Shiva decked in the tiger skin clothes. He will be decked in Vibhuti. He's a beautiful Lord who has bathed himself in this holy ash. And we will have the darshan of him as our beloved Sai Shiva, the one who gives us Vibhuti, is a Vibhuti Pradata. We'll be able to go to Kailash and have that beautiful darshan. Next slide. Then another devotee adds on. Somebody has questioned, what is the point of going to Kailasha? Well, because you'll go there and see Chandra Kaladhar Shankara, Ganga Jatadhar Shankara. when we go to Kailasha, we will see Lord Shiva sitting there. The effulgent moon is on his hair, and the Ganga is flowing out from his locks. Everyone is getting excited. Next slide, next story. And then here, somebody says, oh, and you know, when we go to Kailasa, we'll be able to dance with Lord Shiva in complete ecstasy. Tandava priya kari natana manohar hala haladhar Shankara. And then go to the next line. And then we embark on the journey. We arrive at Kailasha, and we behold before us, we behold the divine form of Lord Sai Shiva. Whether it's Shiva or Sai, you know, but we can visualize even Swami, who is Vibhuti Sundara. He's performing the Vibhuti Abhishekam, and the Vibhuti he has his sleeves rolled up so beautifully, and the Vibhuti is just coming out of the pot as Professor Kasturi is holding it. The Vibhuti is drenching Swami's arm, and it's falling on the idol of Shirdi Baba, and we just sing in satisfaction and glory. We sing Vyagram Bharadhara Vibhuti Sundar Sai Shambho Shankara. And so this is how we can turn these bhajans into various different stories. Next line. Yeah. Then we have rhythm. Why is rhythm so important in a bhajan session? So we've covered why the lyrics and meaning are important. Now let's discuss the rhythm. Rhythm is the heartbeat of a bhajan session. I don't remember the exact quote or the reference, but Swami has said that this entire life, from the minute we are born to the minute we die, is a march, and the heart is the drum for that march. It is the beat. And so when I'm a tabla player, and so when I'm playing tabla for a bhajan session, what I like to visualize is that my heart that is beating here is beating in sync with the bhajan. I try to become one with the bhajan as it is being offered, as I'm playing tabla. And so beat is very important. Without beat, right? Even if the tune gets messed up here or there, and we may have discussed this in the previous breakout session. If the tune, you know, we make a small mistake here or there, the harmonium player, other singers might be able to come in and recover and help you get back on the right tune. But if the beat gets messed up and the tabla player stops playing because he or she cannot figure out you know, where the beat is falling, then the entire bhajan literally falls apart. The beat, the rhythm is the heart of every bhajan session. And of course, as we mentioned in the Kahoot game, clapping is the most important component of rhythm. Next slide, please. And why is clapping itself so important? Swami, in his own words, has said, what is uttered and dwelt upon in bhajan should be hailed by clapping the hands. So in our hands, why do we clap hands? Imagine we're in Parthi, and we are going from the N block. You're staying in block N2, room D20. That's one of the rooms I've stayed in the past. You go down the stairs, and you're walking past the Gayatri temple, the Varalakshmi temple, and you're on your way to the mandir for Suprabhatam, and you hear lots of noisy birds on the trees, all the crows in the morning at 4 a.m. As soon as you start clapping, all the birds just go away. They fly away, all the birds. And there's utter silence. Our mind is like a tree, and all our distracting thoughts are like those noisy birds. And so when we clap, all of those birds fly away. Another benefit of clapping, if we go into Ayurveda, in our hands, we have various pressure points, as this diagram shows. And these pressure points, when pressed and we provide massage on those points, they heal a particular part of the body. So every section of our hand, every section of the palm is tied, as considered by Ayurveda, to a particular part of the body to provide healing. So when we're clapping like this, every single pressure point in our hands is being pressed. And so by clapping, yes, we are providing rhythm to the bhajan session. Yes, it is the most important instrument in a bhajan session. But we are healing our bodies, we are healing our souls and our minds to become more and more receptive to the love and the energy of Swami and his bhajans. Next slide, please. So let's do a little exercise about rhythm. So this clapping was in we have this method in how do we generate vibration through clapping. So there is a method that was actually invented by the Prashanti Bhajan group that is called double clapping. And so usually in a bhajan session, how do we clap? We'll clap once per cycle, every 4 beats usually. So if I was singing a bhajan, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Hari Bol, Mukun, in the first speed, right? In the second speed, I might double it up. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Hari Bol, Mukunda Madhava Govinda Bol. But in the last line of the first speed, we increase the frequency of the clapping by twofold. So if I was clapping Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Hari Bol, and the last line is Keshava Madhava Govinda Bol, right? So Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Hari Bol, Keshava Madhava Govinda Bol, Keshava Madhava Govinda Bol, Hari Bol, and it makes the transition into the second speed a lot easier. Another thing I wish to point out about clapping here is when we clap, some natural tendency to clap sometimes is clapping like this: 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 1, 2, and 1, 2, and Manas Bhajare Guru Charanam Dustara Bhavasagar Taranam. While it is okay to clap like this, it is preferred that the clap is done straight. Manas Bhajare Guru Charanam. The reason being is, if we start doing this, while it is simple, it is slightly more intricate than doing this. And so that 1, 2, and 1, 2, and pattern may become inconsistent across the congregation. And sometimes, if we're not perfectly on beat, 1, 2, and 1, 2, and it may even lead us into a different rhythm itself. If that 1, 2, and 1, 2, and 1, 2, and is not perfectly spaced out, it may lead us to 1, 2, and 1, 2, and that automatically becomes a 6-beat bhajan. If I was clapping like that for Manasa Bhajare, Manasa Bhajare Guru Charan, it automatically changes what the beat of the bhajan is. So while it is okay to do so, the fail-safe, foolproof method of clapping in a bhajan is clapping only in a straight rhythm, without doing any 1, 2, and 1. It is preferred, and it is safer to clap this way, and thereby we maintain unity and we maintain consistency across the entire congregation. Next slide, please. Yeah. So, as we said, the lead singer should sing with the right rhythm. Now, every bhajan has an appropriate tempo. You know, bhajans have been composed by so many different individuals. There's not one single composer for Sai Bhajans. And Sai Bhajans, actually, one point I forgot to mention at the beginning of the session, why Sai Bhajans as a genre are unique. If you think of any devotional song or other genres of music, a composer will sit down with their keyboard or at their desk with some kind of intention of, hey, I would like to sit and compose a song. They sit with the pen, they sit with the piano, or a keyboard or harmonium or some kind of melodic support, and they will compose a song from their own volition. But this is what differentiates a song from a bhajan. As someone who has, very humbly speaking, I've had the opportunity to compose a few bhajans by Swami's grace, along with my friends. Some of you may know him, Brother Siddharth Shivakumar. He's a very good harmonium player, and Brother Sai Santosh Srinivasan, who's a very good tabla player. The three of us have composed many bhajans together. But every time we have wanted to compose a bhajan out of our own volition, we say, okay, today I want to write a Krishna bhajan. I sit down and I try writing it. It doesn't work. It doesn't happen. Because one time we wanted to compose a Krishna bhajan, and we had that intention and it didn't happen. But randomly, when Swami wills, when he wills it is the right time, I believe all these bhajans that have existed in the past, exist currently, and will exist in the future, they're all existent in the ether. And at some point in time, Swami just chooses to pluck them out of the ether and send them down to this earth through an instrument, such as Ravi Rajanasiri or T.V. Hariharan or Sanjeev Borbor, or so many various bhajan composers that we have. And so these bhajans, Sai Bhajans, are unique because every single composer of every Sai Bhajan shares the same experience, that the bhajan is always organically, naturally inspired by Swami himself. And so when these bhajans are composed, they are always composed with a native tempo. For example, Prema Ishwara Hai, supposed to be sung as a slow bhajan. Prema Ishwara Hai, Ishwar Prema Hai. If I take the same bhajan and sing it fast, Prema Ishwara Hai, Ishwar Prema Hai, it doesn't have the same feeling. It literally undermines the entire premise of the bhajan. And of course, I'm laughing at myself because it's almost really so funny if we were to do that. In the same way, and this is a more common thing that we see in Sai Bhajans, is that faster bhajans, which are innately composed and are meant to be sung fast, are sung in a slow tempo. For example, if you have a bhajan such as Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, you are praising God, saying Allahu Akbar, Allah, God, you are great. If you were to take that same bhajan and sing it slowly, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, it almost sounds like I'm ending the meaning of the bhajan. I'm ending the bhajan. It's not supposed to be sung slow. It's supposed to be sung in a fast tempo. And so this depends heavily on the bhajan selection and the position of the bhajan in the sequence. And we'll get into sequencing bhajans in one of the later units of this workshop as to how bhajans should be sequenced. And as the slide says, if it's too slow towards the conclusion of a bhajan session, right? If I try to end a bhajan with Prema Ishwara Hai, Ishwara Prema Hai, then all the energy that's built up in a bhajan session will be diminished. And if sung too fast at the beginning of a bhajan session, if I was singing like Sai Sundara Sundara, if I were to sing it too fast, Sai Sundara Sundara, Vyagrambara Hare Hari Hara, then it also destroys the enunciation, and the enunciation suffers, and devotees may not be able to follow the bhajan. And so keeping the right tempo is always very important, and clapping is the loudest and the most important instrument in a bhajan session. Next slide, please. And so we've talked about the lyrics, we've talked about the rhythm of a bhajan session. Why is rhythm so important? I would like to hand it over to Brother Sanjay to lead us through why the tune. How do we develop proper tune in a bhajan session, and when we lead bhajans?
Sairam. So from the outset, I want to offer my thanks to our whole core group that worked on this this presentation. From the outset, I have to extend my pardon to everyone. I'm not I'm not trained in this way, but I think at the same time, because we are SSC students, we are Canadians, there's so much resource there that's accessible resource that we can share that as a Sai family, as his children. So in that spirit and context, we're more than happy to do that. Brother Erwin, if you don't mind, we'll flip to the other slide just for a second, the next slide, and then we'll flip back. So essentially there's 12 notes in music. Okay, so they're shown here between the letters C and B. If we include all the notes, including the black notes, as equal, right? They're all equal notes, equally spaced. Right? Now we can flip back to the original slide, brother. So there's 3 different ways we can map these notes, okay? Essentially, what we want to know is how to extract the information we want from these notes, okay? So the notes that we've heard commonly are these, okay? I'll play them. There's 7 of them. and then it repeats again, 8. Right? So those notes we've heard. But what we don't commonly listen for is the notes in between. Okay, so of those 7, there's actually 5 missing. So let's play the entire 12 notes, all 12 different notes, and you'll see. Okay, so from those 12 notes, we've extracted on purpose these 7. To make a melodic scale, what's called a major scale. Okay, so in bhajans, all we're doing is we're saying of the 12 notes, which notes am I going to use? And each of these bhajans are classical bhajans. They're static. They're all completely fixed. Okay, so what may change is the scale, and we'll go through that in a second. But what is completely fixed is the notes of that bhajan and the order in which we sing those notes. Okay, so all we want to know for our sake, we don't necessarily have to learn the harmonium or understand those notes, but we need to respect the fact that there are 12 different notes. We are to sing one of those 12 different notes at the same time. And if we're in a note that's not one of those 12 notes, or we're making a sound that's not one of those 12 notes, it's technically out of tune. It's technically out of pitch. Okay? So simply speaking, when we work on these bhajans, and we're going to get into things like tune and tone in just a second, but of course the bhajans that have simpler groups of notes, they're simpler to sing and simpler to practice. If they have more complicated notes, they're simply more complicated to practice. And we'll just move on from then. Brother Erwin, if we can go 2 slides down to tune, please. Good. So tune here is important. As I mentioned, bhajans are classical. And as Brother Rushi mentioned, this is a gift to us from Baba in that all bhajans are completely fixed. Okay? So as I'm looking at the bhajan, the tune is worked out to looking at what's the word and what tune exists on that word. So the best way to break these things down, we find, is to take a reference like a harmonium or a shruti box. You can get apps, and then sing that bhajan slowly to find the tune. Of course, before we even approach the singing part, we want to listen, right? So there's a lot of references that the brothers are going to give. One of them is listening to Parthi Bhajans, listening to recordings, the Bhajan Tutor, Radio Sai, Bhajan Dictionary, Bhajan books. These types of things are good resources. And so we want to take a particular line and just chop it up slowly, slowly, slowly. So when, for example, we're saying Gauri Ganesh, Gauri Ganesh, Uma Ganesh, right? We're going to break everything down. And the beauty of the bhajan is everything is all systematic. It's all already there. So as the next person sings, brother or sister, doesn't matter. The scale may change, but the order in which we approach the notes are all fixed. Okay, next bhajan, next slide, sorry. Okay, tone. So this is very, very, very important, okay? Because this is a common question we're getting in the thread right now is, how do I actually improve how I'm singing, right? So this is a good one, certainly a weakness for me, and something I practice all the time. But this is voice culturing. How do we culture our voice, right? Something that we'll never get sick of or never reach the end of, which is how to get stronger and more accurate in our singing. Okay, so there's many, many ways to practice, many technical ways, many easy ways. Essentially, all we're doing is we're balancing our voice for bass and treble, and we're steadying our voice on a particular note in a particular sound, okay? Because our job is to sing any one of these 12 notes with any given word correctly, okay? So what do we mean by correctly? Correctly means standing on the note properly. So first we're gonna do an idea, and we're prepping our body now for the singing part. So essentially when we start the line, firstly, before we even start any execution of the sound, our ears are turned on. Okay, we're listening all the time. That's the thing, a big one that all of us, myself especially, I miss, is I'm not listening first. So first now I'm listening for what sounds I may produce. Then I'm gonna breathe in through my nose, and the sound's gonna come from my tummy, from my diaphragm. So if you imagine the sounds coming from your tummy, everything in between has to be open, including my mouth, including my throat, my jaw bones, everything has to be relaxed, but open and prep for that sound to come out. So we can go through a couple different ways of practicing. Of course, we'll have to condense it for this purpose, but there's lots of information out there on how to do this. But really what we're doing is we're taking the bhajan and we're slowing the whole thing down. Okay, so If we take that Gauri Ganesh, for example, I would sing it. First, I would understand what is my scale. Now, scale is something I'll go through very quickly. The scale can change per bhajan. So the way I might sing a bhajan, Rushi might sing it half a bit less or half a bit higher. Erwin might sing it higher, whatever. But the order of the bhajan is the same. So first, I'm going to pick my scale that's correct, not too high, not too low, right? And the next thing I'm going to do is just practice the notes slowly. So if the bhajan is, get my scale. Gauri Ganesh, Uma Ganesh. Right? I can practice it that way. Parvati Nandan Shri Ganesh, Sharanam Ganesh, Sharanam Ganesh, Shivanandan Ganapati Ganesh. Right? I can sing it that way. Now, that's practicing the song itself, right? The question we're getting in the thread is, how do I improve the actual voice? Okay, so Baba's recommendation is the bhajan itself is practice. He's told the boys that if you sing the bhajan enough times, you don't necessarily have to do these formal practices. But what I find the Sai students are doing is taking one particular note and one particular word. Normally it's Omkar, and they're standing on that note. So many of us are doing Omkar in the morning 21 times, for example. It's a good time to practice that steadiness of voice. What I want to avoid is being flat. So if the note is Om, I don't want to sing Om. Again, the note is Om. I don't want to sing Om because I'm sharp. I want to be listening all the time to make sure. And for a musician, for a singer, you're never on Shruti. You're always being cognizant of being in that space, right? Correct. So what we find commonly is Baba students are saying Omkar. They're saying Hari Om. Hari Om is a good one. Sai Om is a good one. So they're changing every syllable that can come, every word that can come, they're ready. That R's are different than S's is different than A's. So for every sound that can come on our tongue, we're singing in Shruti. And the last thing I want to mention here is what's called...
Actually, before you do that, I actually wanted to jump in and say, when you're thinking about the tone itself and holding out the tone, you may not always know, okay, am I sharp, am I flat, right? And the best way is actually when you use your ears, and if you hold out a note and you sing that note itself, you will start hearing, if you're sharp or flat, you will start hearing waves happen. It'll go like, because the bigger the wave to your ears, that means you're actually slightly out of tune. When you adjust that, whether it's a little flat or a little sharp, when you meet that note that's actually being held out, you'll hear it, that wave actually goes away. So it's another good tip. If you're practicing on your own, it's like, oh, listen to the waves. You'll clue yourself in at some point.
Super segue, bro, because that's what I was thinking also when we're singing on our own. Like, what are the things to watch out for? So like Erwin said, it's right on, right? Watch for your voice wavering, because that happens to the best of us. When you're singing, especially early in the morning, that's why the early morning is good, because your voice is weak. So if you can strengthen yourself at that time, you'll find that over time, this is getting more and more steady. The real practice is to take a clock and to sustain that note for as long as possible, and in my opinion, as low as possible too. Many Sai students have told me about bass practice. So essentially, and again, we'll condense it here, but if we, for example, are saying, take it for 30 seconds, now you're gonna hear my voice get unsteady because I'm so low. See how I'm not there? I'm like $1.01. I'm too sharp. Right? My voice is not able to get straight to that note on it, right? So as we practice, the reason why bass practice is important is because as I sing those low notes, if I sing, when I sing high notes, it's way easier because the low notes have come into play, okay? So what I want to avoid is those modulations in tone of flat and sharp. I want to avoid modulations and vibrato. So when I'm not singing there's time for that, but not in our practice. It should be just on the note. and then practicing everything slowly, right? So then when we're bringing everything back together, right, I should be aware of what are those 12 notes, at least referencing myself by a harmonium or by a shruti box of some kind, so I'm grounding myself to something else. And then I'm practicing and I'm cognizant of each note at a time. So, and this is sort of my last comment here, is I find a common error for myself is I find me saying, I'll sing it my own way. Or I know how it's supposed to go, but I have an easier way of sounding it. Really, that's me saying that I've not practiced enough. I've not heard the bhajan enough times to break down the notes enough times, and then got myself singing in that way enough times. So it will take some research. Again, Baba says to practice these bhajans 100 times for a reason, because it's not until the 50th time that we're going to get correct with the tune, right? So it does take a second. The wrong mentality is to say, hey, I just heard that bhajan and Sunday I'm going to sing it. That's not the way to do it. Really, a bhajan has to be hammered out for several weeks and months. You'll probably have to sing it in your private time and with your family time to get some ideas. And the only thing I'm going to leave us with is recording, right? This drives me nuts about myself because I hate to hear it, but it's a good practice to record yourself, especially not maybe on Sunday or when the bhajan's going on. It's a little distracting, but especially in practice, if you can hear yourself, how your tone is sounding. Is it pleasant sounding? Is it too bassy? Is it too trebly? What can you do? That's a good way to really feedback for yourself how you're doing.
I wanted to add just 2 quick points, just to add on to why bass practice is important. As you mentioned, we can think of the human voice as like a slingshot. So the lower you pull it, the higher it will go when we try to sing in the higher registers. And something that just came to my mind actually is this bass practice. You said how important it is to remain stable on a given note. I actually like to do my bass practice and my note holding practice when I'm driving to work in the morning. And the little bumps that come up in the road, because trust me, New Jersey has terrible roads with lots of potholes. So all of those potholes and all of those little bumps in the road will affect how I'm singing in my voice. But I try as much as possible to let my voice not shake even in the presence of those bumps. So that allows me to build even more stability in my voice. So just a fun factoid to keep in mind.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, brothers. We have a little bit of an exercise that we are supposed to go through how we put this all together, but I know I want to be conscious of time. It is lunchtime. So let's pause it here. I'll pass it on to Sister Aishwarya and she can continue.
Sairam, everyone. So again, thank you, Brother Rushi, Sanjay, and Erwin for explaining this so beautifully. This was a great place to sit back and think about everything we've learned so far. So let's have a lunch or snack break if you're out in the East for about 30 minutes. So now I'm going to I'm now going to hand it back to our guest speaker, Brother Rushi, who will be speaking about bhajans in private and public group settings.
Loving Sairams, everyone. We had a great break. Thank you, Sister Aishwarya, for bringing us back. So before we dive into more content, let's revisit one of the bhajans that we all sang together during this workshop. We invoked Swami's presence at the beginning with a very simple bhajan. Gauri Ganesh, Uma Ganesh, Parvati Nandan Shri Ganesh. So let us take this particular bhajan as an example and let's dissect every single aspect of it. And to do that, Brother Sanjay, why don't you take it away?
Okay, sure, brother. So the prep work we would have done in advance of approaching the bhajan is first we would have set our pitch and tone, right? So the best way, I think, and we'll make it quick, but when you're setting the scale, we want it to be not too high and not too low. We also want our voices to project. So yeah, we've set our scale properly to one of the 12 notes. And then we've got the wording right. So we've read the words properly. Maybe we set it to ourselves word by word. We've identified the notes in the harmonium slowly. Da, 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 da. I would have gone by every line and every phrase to find out what are the combination of notes we're going to use. I would have clapped through both on my own and without singing. Gauri Ganesh, Uma Ganesh, and counted how many beats or claps are in per line, in this case 8. the feeling of each word and phrase. So I would have taken the time to go through all the points that Brother Rushi mentioned earlier in picturization. So the bhajan books are good and they give us a very, I would say, rough idea what the words mean. But of course, Sanskrit and Hindi and these languages are very intense languages where one word will have multiple layers of meanings. So of course, we want to go into all those ideas and then take the time to ask ourselves what the notes say to us, what the words say to us, and what picture is being created. And then we want to string everything together with full effort from beginning to end. So I should be cognizant of the speed and the gusto involved in this particular bhajan, and intentionally start and end the bhajan from the first line to the end of the very slow time when we repeat the bhajan. We should be ready from the beginning to end.
I wanted to add one point on the pronunciation. For just one example, right? The word Ganesh. That N in Ganesh is a guttural, like a nasal N with your tongue rolls off. Ganesh. It's not Ganesh. The same thing with Narayana. When we Hari Narayana, it's Ana. It's not Na. It's not Narayana. It's Narayana. The same way it's Ganesh. So that N, is it Ana or Na? We have to differentiate. So just to give a little example there. Sorry. Carry on, brother.
No pressure. Now I have to sing the thing. Thanks, Rushi. I'm just kidding. No, so let's sing the bhajan properly, slowly. We'll correct our pronunciation, like Brother Rushi says. And then we'll go through again. I'll just set the scale. I won't play because I think that's a bit of a cheat. Gauri Ganesh, Uma Ganesh, Parvati Nandan, Shri Ganesh, Sharanam Ganesh, Sharanam Ganesh, Sharanam Ganesh, Sharanam Ganesh, Shivanandana Ganapati Ganesh. My mistake is in the last word, Ganapati Ganesh. It's Ganapati, one word. Shivanandana Ganapati Ganesh. I'll straighten it out more so my breathing is more clear so I can sing the last line more clear. Shivanandana Ganapati Ganesh. That's it. Brother, you can take over.
Yeah, so I mean, like the pronunciation said is extremely important, and we need to practice, every single bhajan, as we said 100 times. We've said this multiple times during this session, right? And this has been very common. This is very popularly known, and breakout of why we need to practice a bhajan 100 times, right? But just for the sake of for those who may not know as to why 100 times, Swami has delineated, the first 25 times we practice a bhajan, we get to understand the lyrics, the meaning of the bhajan. The next set of 25 times, the second set, 2 out of 4, we get to understand the tune, the musical aspects of the bhajan. And so we're done, right? But why do we do it another 50 times? Because the third set of 25 times that the bhajan is practiced, we start losing ourselves in the bhajan as we become one with the bhajan. And then the last set of 25 times, we Swami, who has been listening to us practicing this bhajan now at 75 times, the last set of 25 times, Swami starts losing himself in our bhajan, in our offering. So finally, at the 101st time, when the bhajan is offered in a group setting in the center, every single person who listens to that bhajan, who is singing wholeheartedly with chorus and clapping, loses themselves in the glory of Bhagwan. But again, that all depends if the lead singer has done the sadhana of practicing the bhajan 100 times. So, Brother Erwin, would you like to add on to these points?
For sure, yeah. So just putting this all into perspective, we talked about you being the person who puts all this practice and how you focus on singing about bhajan itself. And you might have noticed that we haven't really talked about how to implement that in the Sai Center too much yet, because that's the next portion that we will be going on. But technically, when we're talking about the difference of singing bhajans at home alone or at the Sai Center, there are two main things that we need to touch upon. At home, you are in charge of your connection with God. So therefore, you set your boundaries, right? If you sit down in front of the altar and sing a bhajan to Swami, you decide what the feeling is for you at that time, because it's all about you. Responsibility changes quite a bit when you go to the Sai Center. At the Sai Center, you then become that medium of connection. Buddy, when you sing and you are leading a song, everybody else in that room around you connects to you, and you have to provide that connection to Swami. So that becomes your responsibility. And this, when you're doing that, that's when we say, hey, offering bhajans is a service. It's seva. At the center, bhajans are a little bit different. It's not about you, right? Bhajans are meant to be inclusive. That's why we sing all sorts of different bhajans. That's why we sing all sorts of bhajans with different deities. And there are also guidelines that we must follow. For example, we talked about keeping bhajans short early. So that's one of those things that we have to follow. And the other thing that we try to stress upon is no experimentation during bhajans. Right? What we mean from that is, if you have an idea of a specific variation, you want to suddenly add a third speed, fourth speed, practice it first during the bhajan practice. And then let's, if it sticks in bhajan practice, if it works for the rest of the congregation, then we can implement it. And there's a really nice quote here from Swami, and which says, your implementation, raga and tala, is the lifeline for the congregation's bhava. So just to really, really put it all together, this is what Swami says. Thank you. All right.
So although like you may experience, if I can add up to this, Brother Erwin, like there is a difference, yes, in terms of logistics and guidelines and all that, but the experience itself with the different feeling that you have at home, or just the different environment that you're in, shouldn't actually be distinguished, because the freedom and that feeling is the same whether you're at the center and at home, in the sense that yourself, the peace that you have, is basically equally present, whether you're singing at home by yourself with your family or you're at the center. So the goal here is, at the end of the day, you have the right energy that just translates to the bhajan, and that difference shouldn't actually be there in terms of like the bhava and the center and the alignment that you're looking for. So and the fruit and all that is definitely practice. So when we were talking about no experimentation, practice is basically, and repetition are both like going to help us flourish all that potency of a bhajan session, and that will help us find the connection itself with Swami and the divine that we're looking forward to experiment. So I will let actually Brother Rushi guide us through an example to actually list the difference here.
Sure. Brother Sanjay, do you want to also add some points before I get into the small little story? I know you wanted to
just two quick things here. One was, I agree with what Janisha is saying about the enthusiasm being consistent. Certainly that's a transition piece that's going to remain the same bhava aspect. And then to add to what Erwin was mentioning about being effective in a bhajan group, you can be totally effective even if I'm not the lead singer or I'm not touching an instrument. As the chorus member, I can have such an impact if I'm clapping properly and singing properly. Of course, if we take a mature approach to this, we know that all bhajans are my bhajans. I can repeat every chorus line the same. So, we can have a tremendous impact on the bhajan session, even if we're not a lead part. I can help others in that way too. Yeah.
Very true. Yeah, small story that comes to mind here. I mean, thank you, Brother Sanjay, Erwin, and Sister Janisha. Now that we're getting more into technicalities of bhajan singing at the center in particular, some of the listeners here may feel, why are we contradicting ourselves? Initially, we were talking about bhava. Why is bhava so important? And we even did an entire exercise as to how we can develop bhava in a bhajan session. But now we're sitting here talking about all these technical things, and we're almost saying that bhava is not important, but it is. But why are we contradicting ourselves? And to answer this question, there's a small story to share with all of you. So in 1994, Mahashivratri Akhanda Bhajan was conducted in Prashanti Nilayam in the Purnachand Auditorium. And at the end of the 12-hour Akhanda Bhajan, on the morning after, Swami gave a divine discourse for 1 hour. And this entire discourse was simply about bhajan singing. It was in this discourse itself that a lot of the quotes that we have shared in this workshop have taken from that one discourse. Swami it's literally the Bible for all bhajan singers, and I implore all of you to go search it. It's the Shivratri discourse of the second Shivratri discourse of 1994, where Swami talked a lot about bhajan singing. And so after the discourse was done and Aarti was offered to Swami, Swami came down. And in that discourse, Swami had talked at great length about why we should, bhava is most important, bhava is the most important aspect of bhava, raga, and tala, and everyone was so happy. And in a private encounter they had with one of the Sai students who was present in that session, he told me that after the discourse was done, Swami came down the stage, and he came in Purnachandra Auditorium. There's a congregation, and then there's a small pit where all the bhajan singers sit. And so Swami came down. He came into the instrumentalists and singers pit, and he said, all of that talking about bhava, about why bhava is important, was for the congregation. But for you guys, the ones who are leading the bhajans, for you, it is most important to maintain raga and tala. Because when you, the lead singers, the bhajan group, maintains raga and tala, that is when the entire congregation can maintain their bhava. So it's very important that we all maintain bhava. And to talk more about these technicalities of bhajans and how we can offer Sai Bhajans together as a group, let us move into our second breakout session. So over to you, Sister Aishwarya, to get us set up for that.
Salam, everyone. So again, thank you, Brother Rushi. We will move into our final breakout session. This session is also 20 minutes with a buffer time of 5 when you all come back, for all of you to come back into the main session. All right, so welcome back, everyone. I'm going to quickly just hand it back over to Brother Rushi, who will be speaking about offering our bhajans to Swami. He will also be talking about Sarva Dharma and multilingual bhajans in this part of the session as well. Brother Rushi, you can go ahead.
Sure. Thank you so much for that wonderful breakout session. Thank you, Sister Aishwarya. So just to summarize, what was discussed in the bhajan sessions and go into this topic of how we offer bhajans as a group. We've talked about bhajan. How do we get started as an individual? How do we refine that process when we do a bhajan session as a group? How does every individual bhajan come together and make this garland of 12 or 14, sometimes even 20 bhajans? Like, for example, at my center, our usual Sunday session has about 20 bhajans in it. So whatever length of the session it is, how does it all come together and fit in as one unified garland offering to Swami? So Brother Sanjay, would you like to take it away from here?
Sure. Thank you, Rushi Sairam. So we found that, yes, it's important at the group level. We're going to be prepared. We're going to run forward, do the group part first and then the individual part, because the individual part is far more complicated and important, we think. So from the group aspect, there's a bhajan list. We can go to the next slide, bhajans as a group offering. So there's a bhajan list. There's lead singers, there's accompaniment and instrumentalists. They're accompaniment instruments, they're not instrumentalists. There's an altar team and maybe a sound team, right? So that's upper level, sort of what we do as a group. But individually, there's a lot of preparation that needs to be done. So in our explanations, we are not really doing it justice in terms of really how many times Brother Rushi has gone through this practice. It's not his first rodeo. He's done it thousands of times so that it's mechanical now. So in terms of our individual practice, what we also found is that Baba's music is not cheap in a sense, that it's not that it's just about the music. There's discipline that's involved that we have to invoke as individuals before we even approach the music. So things like being on time, being accountable, being clean, being prepared, being flexible, being awake in the bhajans, as funny as that sounds. But these things all together, that sets us up for just the point where we can now approach the singing aspect of it. So I think that was a neat part, that we are trained as Baba students, people who listen to what Baba says right from the bat of this particular music. We're supposed to be prepared. Now, taking that into the music context, really what we should be prepared with is we should be prepared. Firstly, our voices should be cultured, right? Before we get in, we should have an idea of the bhajan we're singing. we should have an idea. This is at a basic level, and we'll go through some more advanced levels, but at a basic level, we should know the bhajan I'm singing. I should know the scale I'm singing in, or approximately. Some folks maybe don't have a harmonium, but they've practiced so many times that they're automatically in the same pitch every time. That's also pretty acceptable. They'll take over from there. I should know the words from heart, and I should be able to sing with some feeling, okay? So the next stage up from there is if I can take multiple bhajans that I'm prepared with. Not only did I come with the one, but I have maybe 3 or 4 that are of different speed and different context. That's good. Now I'm aware of all the words. I have a general idea of what the words mean, and I can string those together. The most advanced level, or what we would consider really great, is if I'm ready for a number of bhajans in different scenarios, right? So what we found from the breakout room was how to make a vibrant bhajan, and Rushi Bhai gets into it some detail, but time and circumstances is important, right? So that's, if you're ever stuck in, man, what do I sing today for this bhajan? The time and circumstances is what you need to think of. So when you're with SSE, sing simple bhajans. If you're in a family setting, make sure the words are clear and they're simple, uplifting bhajans, right? If you're going to sing something complicated, make sure you're not, one of 10 bhajans that are complicated, because it's going to sound very washed, right? So time and context is very important here. So a bhajan singer who's able to say, hey, Mr. Coordinator or Mrs. Coordinator, where am I and what do you need? What are we missing? Maybe I can sing these 3 bhajans in that fitting. What's suitable to you? That makes you helpful. And then, of course, the bhajan coordinator can use you as required. Or, of course, they might say, hey, we actually don't need singer today. Just be chorus. And you can, of course, take power from that. Now, all bhajans are my bhajan like any other day. Okay. So that's preparing as an individual. Yeah, and the last part I wanted to mention was just a bit that Uncle Hariharan had mentioned to us, is he said that, Baba was looking for an X factor. He said there was something in the students that it wasn't just about the best singer. There was, and he was alluding to folks who just did what Baba said, proper, is to the best of their ability. So it wasn't just about the music and the quality of the singer. Baba was expecting that you did what he said. He expects that we do what he say. Okay.
It's all about that implicit obedience. Yeah.
Yeah. Janisha?
Yes, okay. So here we are for multilingual and multi-faith bhajans. So the main idea we have to actually put in mind is basically those two is to have the idea of inclusivity, right? So although the language is different, the meaning, the melody, and the love aren't, right? And that's enough to just justify the value of the offering itself. So, I can put you into a few contexts to actually help you understand what multilingual could be like. So for instance, in Quebec, we have like a few French bhajans, and we also have English bhajans that are under the same melody. So one example here would be, I am within the light and the light dwells in me. In French, it would be, Je suis dans la lumière est en moi. And so there's also another example that we've heard and I've listed earlier was Harinam Gate Chalo. And there's a French version, which is Seigneur de l'univers, entends cette prière. So it is the same melody of Harinam Gate Chalo, but the meaning is basically the same. And so we find that, whether there was a pronunciation or language barrier, well, we have those possibilities to help us actually connect, to singing and offering the bhajan that we wish. And so not to forget that will need practice for sure if the chorus and the team is not familiar with the lyrics itself. And so within the same concept, we find that there are many bhajans that have that flexibility. And there are about like 226 bhajans that were able to sing in different languages, and name it. You have Japanese, you could have like in Spanish too. And so this adds up to the whole openness and the possibility that everyone could be included when it comes to the Sai Bhajan genre. And so that's to help us basically bring the full potential, that purity behind the bhajan, right? And a great example that we had earlier was during our break. I heard so many bhajans going on, and that was like a perfect example of multilingual and multi-faith bhajans all included there. So thank you for putting this together. It all adds up. Wonderful. And I'd like to actually take a moment to mention here that, you know, multi-faith and multilingual could be used interchangeably because, you know, on some occasions you will use different chantings or bhajans to tailor the event itself. So let's say for Buddha Jayanti, you might have a specific like bhajan chant. So, you know, Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato. And if you want to sing like something that is more glorifying and more praising all the Almighties, well, why not? Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. And so this is the idea behind the possibilities of including different bhajans. And although, you know, we can incorporate all that, making sure that practice is key because that will help everyone pronounce it properly, understand it properly, and help you all connect to the meaning. And the meaning will add value, and the value will add up to the whole bhava of the actual bhajan itself. And it will just create a harmonious flow, right? And that's what everyone during your practices should feel in tune to come up to that level. Next slide, please. And so quickly here in Canada, I'm pretty sure most of you would add like a couple of English bhajans, and in Quebec, we'll add French bhajan when possible for sure. And so this is to give the opportunity of newcomers or people who are assisting during bhajan or don't even understand Sanskrit properly to have that chance and understand what is going on, right? Although music is the language of love itself, where, you know, you will get yourself carried away and allow you to feel that joy and that presence and that bliss, it adds up an extra touch. And so it's the same concept where, you know, you have a favorite bhajan or you see a different deity and you connect properly to that. Well, that variety adds up. And it's to really help build up that miraculous experience of joy. And that's why we provide that opportunity to be in the Sai Bhajans. Thank you. Next slide. I think, yeah, next is Erwin.
This. Yeah, something I want to add to this is on top of just thinking about somebody new coming into the Sai Center and them relating to an English bhajans, obviously because of the lyrics. When talking about the lyrics itself, if at a Sai Center your bhajans are being projected on a screen, make sure you as the person who's giving your bhajan to your bhajan coordinator provide the translation for it as well, so that gets added onto your PowerPoints, because that's so valuable for somebody new that comes in and it's like, hey, how come like all the bhajans are just in Sanskrit? They can, if they read that translation, they'll understand a little bit more about what's really happening here and why all these people are all gathered to sing. So talking about responsibilities itself and having things projected, we've talked enough about what your responsibility is as a singer. But now let's talk about the responsibilities of a devotional coordinator or a bhajan coordinators. So Swami has advised bhajan coordinators to follow several rules when sequencing a bhajans. For example, we have a bit of a tick mark rule. So your very first bhajan, and this is super important even for someone who's for yourself, if you're picking your bhajan, not just for the bhajan coordinator. If you're sending in a Ganesh bhajan, try to remember, okay, come in a little bit faster. So for example, when you're starting the bhajan, same thing for the bhajan coordinator. This is a bhajan that should be around medium to medium fast pace. And then the bhajans that follow, they slow down a little bit for the next two bhajans. And then from there on, after the third bhajan, it's all about picking up that speed and generating energy so that by the end of that session, everybody leaves fully charged. Right? Earlier, we used the example of having a very, very, very slow bhajan at the very end of the session. What you would see in that chart would be, it goes up and then pew, it goes all the way down, right? So we want to try to avoid that. So bhajan coordinators, this is on you to make sure that when you're picking bhajans for your center, that it follows this kind of sequence. The other thing that
I
you want to
wanted to
keep
add something about Ganesh Bhajans. That's why you'll notice. Sorry for cutting you off, Brother Erwin. That's why you see most Ganesh Bhajans are innately composed to be medium or fast paced. There's very, very few Ganesh Bhajans that are actually slow, and even the slow ones are sung in an energetic manner. You have bhajans like Pahi Gajanana Dinavana Mahaganapate Namostute. That's why there are no really slow. I mean, you do have like bhajans like Jai Ganesh Vigna Vinashaka, but even those bhajans are rendered with high energy. So that is why, if you think about it, in order to fit this mold of a check mark, mostly all Ganesh bhajans are innately composed to be medium fast. Sorry, go ahead.
Perfect. And talking about like the Ganesh Bhajans itself, something that you want to keep in mind is don't have a lot of different or the same deity or same style of bhajans, same beat of bhajans back to back, right? You wouldn't want to put like 3 Dadra bhajans back to back, or you wouldn't want to put 3 Krishna bhajans back to back, and then you vary it. So intersperse your bhajans when you're doing your list. Now, the other thing that you want to keep in mind, especially with a lot of times we want to give opportunities to people at the Sai Center. If you want to do that, keep your bhajans short, right? It does 2 things. You keep a bhajan short, you give people opportunities. At the same time, you're providing space for nothing to drag out. You don't want to be in a session where it just suddenly someone sings a 20-liner bhajan and the energy just drops, right? There's no point of that check mark if that happens, right? So try to keep your bhajans to about 6 to 8 lines at most, and you'll see it'll make a huge difference. As a bhajan coordinator, you, just like everybody else is, when they're singing, this is their service, you have been given the opportunity as a bhajan coordinator by Swami to help everyone connect to him and to ensure that the bhajan session itself is vibrant. You become responsible for putting that list together so that the right energy gets carried throughout. So it's very important. Your role is huge. Just like I said, just like everyone else whose service is to sing, your service is to make sure that you provide the proper platform for each individual to carry out their service, right? So your role is huge. So how you do that? Have a list, have a vision, and be prepared. And what we mean from that is make a list that fits the occasion, right? For example, a list for Swami's Aradhana, Mahasamadhi may not be the same list that you would use for Swami's birthday, right? The feeling is different there. It's one is you're celebrating the birth, the other one you're celebrating Swami's passing away, right? So the milestone, although they're both milestone moments, the list has to look a little bit different because the feeling that you want to transfer to people has to be a little bit different. As a bhajan coordinator, be open to criticism, right? You will receive criticism, but also on top of that, you should give positive criticism to people and constructive feedback, right? So it's in your role that you go up to someone, and when we say that, you should be willing to provide feedback. Don't just say, hey, you're not singing this properly. Go up to the person outside of the group setting, talk to them, just say, hey, I noticed that this line wasn't done so well. Can we maybe work on that later on, right? And put in the time to work with that person so they feel encouraged. And just based on the last point that Sister Janisha was talking about, have multi-faith bhajans, right? Be open to have multilingual bhajans. Provide a platform that you have bhajan practice so that it can happen. And on top of that, be ready for the unexpected. At the last minute, it often happens that someone will send me a text and says, hey, sorry boss, I'm not able to come, I'm sick, or my dog is sick. Be ready for a backup plan that fits the mold of that check mark, that fits the mold of the energy, that's still applicable to that day and time. So yeah, I'll keep going here. Just to sum it all up, the selection includes the selection of your lead singers. Obviously, you want to make sure that throughout the entire bhajan session you have strong bhajans, right? So start and with your strong singers, even throughout, start always have your strongest musicians available if you can, especially on a special occasion. It really does help. But the second thing after selection, it's sequencing, right? Just keep in mind that your role as a bhajan coordinator at the end of all of it, after everything that I've said here, is just energy, right? You want to focus on that energy, that output. And be mindful of time and circumstance. And Brother Rishi has a great example of that, so I'll let him handle it.
Yeah, time and circumstances is very important when we're singing bhajans. This is Sanskrit words for those are samayam, time, and sandarbham, which is circumstance. So you mentioned a great example of, how a bhajan session for Swami's birthday would differ for Aradhana Mahotsavam. So this example was told to me by my late grandfather, who passed away in 2003. He was a great bhajan singer and a harmonium player. And so in 1995 was the the 5th World Conference of the International Sai organizations. And in the Hillview Stadium, there was a bhajan group that they were singing bhajans there. And it was close to Swami's birthday. So all of the bhajans, are meant to be upbeat and very happy and joyful. And suddenly, they start singing this one bhajan, Tere siva prabhu koi nahi hai, tujhko mera pranam. And in the middle of that bhajan, just as the first line is kicking off, Swami goes near he looks over the stage, over the Shanti Vedika, and all the singers who are seated in the pit. He tells them to stop singing that bhajan. And then Swami goes on to explain, you're here to celebrate my birthday. You're here to celebrate and be in the presence of God. One of the lines in that bhajan goes, Dwar khadi hu mein dukhiyari sunulo meri pukar. In Hindi, that means, oh Lord, I am standing at the doorstep of God and I am depressed. I am forlorn. If we are standing at the doorstep of God, if we are beholding his divine presence, we should have nothing but bliss and joy in our hearts. So saying that, Swami, we are standing at your doorstep and we are feeling so depressed and so forlorn, just the light and the illumination that we receive from Swami is enough to brighten our days. So why are we telling him that, while we are seeing you, we are feeling sad, right? So picking the right bhajan for the right time is most important. Yep. Next slide, please. And of course, when we say, pick the right bhajan for the right time, as I like to say, there's no reason for bhajan and there's no season for bhajan. And in terms of time and circumstance, how do we roll in bhajans into our daily lives? One technique that I personally like to follow, and this is a little funny one, I like to time my daily chores and activities by bhajans. So, for example, brushing my teeth would be the length of one bhajan. Showering would be about 2 bhajans, of course. And that's not just, to keep me on time, but it's also to conserve water. Right? If we're in there showering for a whole bhajan session, we're going to be wasting many, many liters of water. We want to shower, just for about 2 bhajans. My drive to work in the morning is pretty long. It's about 14 bhajans long. And then when I'm at work and I'm having lunch, I'll usually close my office door and I listen to bhajans. It takes about 5 bhajans for me to finish my meal. So this is one cute little way we can start rolling bhajans into our daily lives. And yes, while we've talked about so many technicalities of bhajan sessions and why we're doing this and how we're doing this, at the end of the day, there is no reason for bhajan, no season for bhajan. And let us try to inculcate these bhajans in our daily lives. With that, I think it's a good stopping point for us to get into question and answer session. I know we've seen many, many questions that have come through the chat window, so we'll hand it over to the facilitators to guide us through the question and answer session.
Saram, everyone. Okay, so we are moving into our question and answer session. There's a couple of reminders before I hand it over to the facilitators. Please note that any questions that you have so far and have put in the chat box, our speakers have taken note and will be answering them. If you have more questions, please feel free to ask in the chat box. And for in-person participants, I believe that there's been a system that has been set up for a Google Drive or something, and then you can pass those questions on to your center coordinators and they can communicate this with the speakers. We ask that you refrain from using the raise hand option on Zoom, as we will only be answering questions from the chat box. Please note that while this Q&A is happening, our Bhajan team is actively filtering and grouping any related questions together. So if by any chance a question is not answered due to limitation of time, we will be sending an email later on to address them. This segment will also provide Bhajan resources and tools that you can use to learn, listen, and sing. And now I'll hand it over to the Bhajan team to continue on with this part of the workshop.
Rushi Bhai, is it okay if I ask the questions and you can maybe chime in?
Yeah, sure. I can chime in, and then all of you guys as well can chime in. Why don't we can maybe like pause the screen share here, since we don't have any slide content, and all four of us can get spotlighted, so that we're all having a nice group discussion here.
Okay, Sam. So we'll just pick some select questions. Of course, we may not have time for all of them. So as they're most relevant, and forgive me, we can get to all of them perhaps in a different forum. So let's go through one. How do you, as a novice singer, improve singing in tune and improving diction besides syncing in the group and learning from recordings?
I would say repetition, continuous repetition of the bhajan, and not just repetition, but active repetition in which we see, you listen to the recording once and you keep repeating it, you may go off the path. So always refer back to the recording. There's really no way to do it, and to do it besides referring to something else, right? As they say, in a spiritual path, you always need a guru. So when you're learning a new bhajan, a good recording is always the key, the guidepost. And of course, there are many versions of bhajans out there. And I think we'll get to this in the resources section, but I think the Prashanti Mandir bhajans, that what is sung in Puttaparthi and Prashanti Nilayam, is the gold standard for all bhajans, and how the bhajan is rendered there is how it should be rendered everywhere else, for our information. Brothers and sister, would you like to add on to that?
Yeah, I'll add on to that. I think Brother Rushi is maybe being humble about just how much the practice is involved here, right? When he's saying the preparation, it's a lot of it. And he's hinting at some of these things, like in his car and in the shower. This stuff is nonstop. And Vedam will tell us that Satyatam Kirtanam Jayanto Mam, it's going on all the time. And so he's choosing to tap in. So it's not really a surprise that he's well prepared, because he's putting in that kind of time. So I think all of us sort of have to think a little more about making this a lifestyle thing. It is a lifestyle thing, Swami's grace. And of course, it's not a burden. It's a fun thing. It should be part of my growth, So if we take it along, we keep the structure in mind. I think that's part of good practice. Unless Janisha or Erwin want to chime in, I'll go to the next one. You guys can say something.
I'll add in quickly here. Basically, when it comes to practice, you will have your individual practice to do too, in terms of understanding the meaning, being able to focus with the lyrics itself and pronouncing properly before you actually feel that you're going to practice into the practice session. So Brother Erwin, we're mentioning how the responsibilities of the bhajan coordinator would be, well, make sure the preparation planning is also there too, right? Like the bhajan session practices are there, maybe after your bhajan practices itself, the bhajan on Sundays, or have those slots so people have that time and your group have that opportunity to practice as many times as possible, and making mistakes during those times too, because it is a time of improvement, right? And so building on that is key.
I'd like to add one last little thing here. If you're a newcomer and you want to learn how to sing bhajans, don't learn by leading a bhajan. Learn by chorusing first. Get into the session, sit beside someone, look at the lyrics, listen to how they're chorusing, because the chorus half the time maintains the base level of the song without the variations. Learn to sing that, because at least then you will pick up stuff after you've done that a few times, not just like for 2-3 bhajan sessions, maybe a month, maybe 2 months. You start understanding how the words go, you start understanding how the clapping happens. All of that plays a part into your practice. Then you can implement into your own practice for you to lead a bhajan. Yeah.
And even when you're listening to the recording, when you first start listening to a bhajan, I would recommend don't sing along with the lead. Sing along as you're listening to a recording, even sing along with the chorus initially, so that you get to learn the bhajan. And you, if you try to sing with the lead, it might become difficult to learn because what you're trying to sing and what that lead singer is singing is going to conflict, right? So sing along with the lead of the chorus of the bhajan initially.
So we have a segue question here. It's related. We can keep the answer a little bit short because it's not as material based, but it says, what do we do if we're sitting in the bhajans, and what do singers and instrumentalists do when the devotees in the crowd are not clapping or singing along, or we feel it's a low energy audience? I'll happily start off by saying that we should just set the example, right? So if we feel like it's not rocking, it's not moving, what are you doing to change things? So how are we participating in that bhajan that's changing things? Maybe it should have started from yesterday, and maybe on the spot I can't change something, but we should be thinking, hey, how can I set the example and turn up the energy myself? Rushi or Janisha or Erwin?
Yeah, I think if you in the session itself, you realize like, oh, and you're not an instrumentalist or whoever, if you yourself are not doing it, don't expect anybody else to think about that. So you start yourself and you'll see the ripple effect, right? There are times where we've all seen this instrumentalist come off their instrument just to clap. And that means a lot, for an instrumentalist to do that, it means a lot. It means that there's not enough energy, right? So come prepared, be self-aware, because you play a big part in that entire bhajan session.
Yeah, we talked about this earlier about preparation, but like a common joke I have with the tabla boys is I say, hey bro, you ate today? You ate breakfast? You good? So they feel like, yeah, I'm ready. They have to start. And then after bhajans, we hug them because, bro, for an hour, your hands were going crazy, so they had such a duty to us. They helped us so much. They are steady. That's a responsibility in itself. Okay, let's move on.
I just want to add one sentence here. As Swami, backing off of what Brother Erwin said, Swami has said one very important word. Being a good example is the best form of service. So as people who are involved with bhajans, it is the best thing we can do is be that good example and sing chorus and clap in a bhajan session.
Okay, Brother Rushi, and segue to that, it's a common question. It's a good one. How should Manjira be played during the slow speed?
So I'd like to consider two different ways of playing Manjira, right? So as much as possible, if the Manjira player is a little bit more advanced, they can try to mirror exactly what the tabla player is playing. For example, I wish I had another tablist with me here and I could do like more of a live demonstration, right? But if it's let me sing like a medium pace bhajan, right? He Ram Narayana. So the tabla player will probably do like a tihai tempo, like din ta din ta. He Ram Narayana, Hari Krishna Janardhana, He Ram Narayana, Nityananda Brahmananda, Krishna Madhusudana, Hari Krishna. And then this also ties into the clapping exercise that we had done at the towards the beginning of the workshop, right? So when we get into the last line of the first speed, right? Hare Krishna Janardhana, Hare Krishna Janardhana, He Ram Narayana, Hare Krishna Janardhana. So we want to keep the Manjira beats simple, but we want to also keep the Manjira beats simple, but if possible, the Manjira should try to mirror what the tabla player is doing, especially when we have breaks. For example, we have a bhajan, Jai Jai Prabhu Giridhari, Natavarananda Lala, Natavarananda Lala, He Giridhar Gopala, He Giridhar Gopala, He Giridhar Gopala, He Giridhar Gopala. So let's say the tabla player like just kept the tabla player did the break, right? And you feel like so much power when those breaks happen in a bhajan, right? But if let's say the manjira player just kept going, right? Like I have a kanjira here also, right? If I was playing kanjira, right, and I'm doing Natavaranandalala, Hey Giridhar Gopala, Hey Giridhar Gopala, Hey Giridhar Gopala, Hey Giridhar Gopala. But if I did the same thing without doing the breaks, it would lose its beauty a little bit, right? Hey Giridhar Gopala, Hey Giridhar Gopala, Hey Giridhar Gopala. So it is important to be simple, but especially if we have some breaks or tihais that come in, the manjira or the kanjira player as well should try their best to emulate the tabla and the dholak player.
Okay, lovely. A question more onto the raga aspect and the notes aspect. How important is it to know the actual notes of the bhajans we want to sing so that we can sing each note correctly?
Brother Sanjay, I think you are the most qualified to answer this question. The harmonium guru here.
Oh, that's embarrassing. Okay, no problem. No, that's honestly, but that's nothing wrong with that. I'm happy to answer that. The truth is, no, you don't need to know the actual notes in terms of names. Yeah, I could replace the words of the bhajan with the names of the notes, right? So then in my brain, I'm interchanging them. As long as I'm aware that it's not me in my distance, there's a set distance between the notes, right? So out of those 12 notes, there's an equal spacing and frequency of half note distance between each of them, right? To get anyone with a harmonium brain moving, like if you pick any of those notes and you take whole, half, whole, half, that gives you a major scale from that note. Okay, so as a singer, let's say I have no concept of the notes, as long as I'm listening for the distance in those notes, right? So if I take let's take a complicated idea. If I take Brahmandanayaka Baba, it might sound nice because it sounds complicated and musical, but I've understood that there's a difference in those notes. So I'm playing the harmonium with the voice, and then mixing it all together, right? So from the beginning, it's not a song, it's a roadmap, right? So being familiar with the tune is a thing. And to be honest, we have some very senior uncles, for example, at our center, who have no heads and toes about the idea about the harmonium, but they sing in the same pitch every time because they're so well practiced. They're singing in the shower, they're singing in the car. Their voice has no choice but when they get to the Sai Center to replicate that practice. So that practice is enough. And Baba has actually said that practicing the bhajan is enough practice. You don't have to go into bass practice and riyaz, and it's good, it helps, but practicing the bhajan is the main thing.
And if you have any issues with like coming up with the notes and how to find the notes itself, don't be afraid to go to your harmonium player at the Sai Center after bhajans. Just sit down with them.
Sorry, Erwin, one other thing is you can look at these resources. Like if you're not sure, and even the harmonium player is not sure, you're in two minds of it, go to Radio Sai, go to these resources that actually map out in any notation you want, what is the notes? And it's not up to Sanjay or there's a decisive way. And it's better we use these third-party materials to find out, hey, what are the words? And we make it a habit that we research. One of the sisters was asking in the group, how do we know the updated words? And it's very nice that we research these things and we're aware that it's Shamala Komala and Raghava Mohana and these things. It's nice to know. Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry, I forgot I was asking the questions. Okay. So why is a deity structured followed? And ending with Hanuman and Kartikeya? Can we not have Ganesh and continue with no specific structure? Rushi, I think you should tune in on that, and I'm more than happy to chime in if not.
Sure, yeah, I'd love to answer that one. As we have said, all the bhajan, the guidelines that we've given, we are saying that, even as per the individual session, right, individual bhajan, the way that particular bhajan is sung in Parthi is the way we should be singing it here. I think that applies to the overall session as well. In Parthi, there is no such rule that it has to be Ganesh, Guru, Devi, and then, at the end with Hanuman, Kartikeya. The only rule that is followed in Parthi is that the bhajan session starts with the Ganesh bhajan. And after that, it is completely dependent on the raga, the tala, and, not having the same deity back to back, not having the same raga back to back, not having too much of the same beat structure back to back as well. And so while it may be nice to follow these formats, and I'm sure, there have been various, traditions that have been built into us, but if we really boil it down to the key guidelines of how Swami himself has ran bhajan sessions and how bhajans have been presented to Swami in Prashanti Nilayam and elsewhere, um, these guidelines were never really in place, because in Parthi, you could be singing bhajans. You could be literally be in the middle of a bhajan set, in the middle of a bhajan, and Swami will just call for arti. I have been personally witness to this happening. Gopala Radhalola Murali Lola, and then Swami will just raise his hand. Murali Lola Nanda Lala Om Jai Jagadhish Hare Swami Sathya Sai Hare. Of course, we don't have that level of spontaneity in our Sai centers, right? But that just goes to show that following this, having this format that we have to end a bhajan session with Hanuman and Kartikeya, it would be better if we break out of these molds. Yes, we start with the Ganesh bhajan, but then following the rules of not having consecutive deities, having a variance of speeds and languages, even, I think is more important than sticking to the deity structure.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that, in Prashanti, the only standard, they started with Ganesh bhajan. That was different. We started Ganesh, absolutely. After that, there was no protocol. So if it's good enough for Swami, I think it's good enough for us. Okay, next question. I'll answer this question, and we can just move on. I think it's a good one. Bhajan coordinators sometimes give criticism in front of others, and it's not positively given, maybe not constructive feedback, maybe they're hurt. How do you handle coordinators who do that? So I'll answer the question. I don't think we need to make so long about this, but coordinators should have a responsibility to coordinate and make it loving and make sure it's reciprocal. I think the same thing has to happen on the listener's end. So when we get in there, we're not going to get, powdered every time. It's a construction time. So I think we have to go in there with a mindset of thinking, how do I learn? How do I help? I have to be a sponge in that. So when someone says something critical, especially when it's mean, I found that when I look back, even though it hurt my ego at the time, it's probably some of the best feedback I've heard. When someone says, hey, brother, I couldn't hear what you were saying. And I say, man, it's not about you. It's about me and Baba. Really about a person's heart. So if they didn't hear that, right? So these things all together matter, that other people matter first. You guys want to add to that, or can we just move on? Yeah.
Pretty much touched upon it.
We're all a family. We call ourselves a Sai family for a reason, and so if feedback is offered from both sides, right, we should feel free. We should feel the humility that we are only receiving feedback from our own brothers, sisters, aunties, uncles, mothers, fathers, right? So,
I think if you gave that feedback in private, that look, brother, you gave me that feedback. I know that I'm supposed to learn, but I took it hard. Maybe I'm learning. I think they'll take that very well and they'll adjust. It'll be okay. Everyone's quite understanding, I find. Yeah. What if someone wants to sing it? This is along the same line of communication understanding. We're stitching these questions together so that they make some sense, right? Mm-hmm. What if someone wants to sing a bhajan slowly that they've practiced and they're emoting? Should the instrumentalist speed it up because they think it should be faster? I think Erwin or Janisha, if you guys want to chime in on this.
Yes. Janisha, go for it.
Okay. Go ahead, and I'll add. Yeah.
I think it all comes down to if how you practice the bhajan itself. Was this, when you practiced it, did you keep in mind the native tempo of the bhajan? The only reason why we would speed it up as an instrumentalist or a double player or harmonium player is if that bhajan itself was supposed to be sung at a faster pace. Mm-hmm. If that's the baseline of the bhajan is supposed to be sung at a faster pace. If it's not, and it's also like we try to keep in mind, if you're singing in the last hour of Akhanda Bhajan, for example, or in the last 10 bhajans of Akhanda Bhajan, you have a responsibility that, no, you can't start your song slow. You're going to be going fast because we need to end the session on a high level. Because imagine, yes, it can be about like your bhava and keeping, you can go on and on about that. But if because you've practiced it, I want to beautify it, and then suddenly it drops the entire speed of that session, you are now responsible for dropping the energy of the entire session, right? So that's how I see it.
And also,
sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
It's okay. Maybe it tunes in together. So, it's true that when you want to add up a fast bhajan and keeping up that pace is also one thing, but you have to be open to adapting, right? When it comes to bhajans, sometimes like each bhajan will have their own structure, their own foundation according to how it was actually mapped at the first. But there are times you could use that variation into special occasions and actually uplift the energy, because you are comfortable, but there's a place where adaptation is also present to make the beauty of that bhajan even more valuable to the whole session itself. So making being aware that it's just not one-way stream, but a both two-way stream here, right?
And then one thing I wish to add, Sister Janisha, is there's a reason why we end the session with Aarti, and the Sathya Sai Aarti that we sing, we can literally do a whole session on just the Aarti itself, but to keep it short, the Sai Aarti, the Sri Sathya Sai Aarti is so unique. All other Aartis for different deities are long, they sing it slow. But the Sai Aarti is done within 3 minutes. And there's a reason why we sing it fast, right? We generally never sing the Aarti as Om Jai Jagadi. It's always fast. Om Jai Jagadish Hare. Because that is the ultimate finale of the bhajan session.
Sweet.
Brother, in that part, we're talking about like energy in the bhajan. So I feel like this is a good one where we're talking about correct hand posture for clapping. This is a cool question. Okay, it says, according to the picture showing the Ayurvedic positions, it shows both clap. Basically, what is the proper hand posture for clapping?
So I also saw this question pop up in this chat box. So when we clap like this is actually known as the Qawwali clap. If you've watched like Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan and his group, all of them, doing the Qawwalis, they're actually clapping like this. And it produces a very different kind of sound. It's more bass heavy. Brother Erwin, feel free to chime in. But when we clap like this, it's a little louder, right? So you can vary it up based on how you want the bhajan to feel, right? If it's a slower bhajan and you don't want your clapping to overpower, perhaps doing this is better. But if it's a faster bhajan, louder session, it's the last 10 hours of last 10 bhajans of a global Akhanda bhajan, and you want to pump up that energy, clapping like this might be easier. And from a scientific perspective, when we clap like this, right, there's your hand makes like a little cup, and you're literally popping an air bubble every time you clap like this. So it depends on where you're trying to apply your claps. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't clap for slow bhajans. Even for slow bhajans, we can always clap. And that kind of sound, it's the equalizing of how, the sounds, the different claps sound together. It's important what kind of clap we choose to do for the particular bhajan at hand.
I was going to add to that, bro, and just say that I just find the clap in Sathya Sai Bhajan so powerful. It's very unique in that it's not dull. It's also very clear. It's also not overpowering. Like, I'm not a percussion person myself, but I feel like all of our hands, they sort of fit perfect in this little pocket. I think we can even do it on our laps. Most of our boys, we just, cup our hand and we can just make that pop noise. But it's just so unique to our bhajan that I think as long as we remember that it shouldn't be overpowering and it shouldn't be quiet, somewhere in between is the sweet spot there. Good. So that
before you jump, there's a comment right in the chat that's about this. Clap for this first speed. Some people don't.
Okay, so I have a quick answer for that. And different centers do things different ways. But if you ever sat in Baba sitting there, I guarantee you're not going to clap. So in that situation, it should be full power all the time, every time, from that first bhajan to the last bhajan. There's no like sleeping in the first speed and then Dolak turns on and then there's clapping there's no slow bhajans and Sai Bhajans. There's no boring bhajans and Sai Bhajans. So there's something wrong if we're not clapping in that first speed. If we're not full energy all the time, there's something I'm doing wrong. Just my opinion, Rushi.
And
exactly. 100%.
Last thing about clapping too is, while we're on that topic still, is be mindful of who's around you, and don't overpower other people as well, like in your clapping, because sometimes it can really hurt your neighbor. So just be mindful of that. Whatever you do, just be in sync with everybody else. That's all. Let's go to the next question.
Sure. I'm just trying to pick some good ones. Yeah. When we lose ourselves in the bhajan, sometimes changes happen impromptu. How do we control that? Because we're lost in the bhajan, we're not necessarily thinking of our bhajan, because we're so deeply internalized. I'm happy to go first if you guys want.
Okay.
Okay, I think there's levels to this stuff, right? So deeply internalized, like what does that mean? So if I'm deeply internalized to the point where I forgot the recipe of my cooking, that's not a form of seva anymore. That's back to my home thing. I'm doing what I want. So I think my personal perspective is, yeah, you can be so efficient in your practice that it seems like you're lost in the bit. But for me in my stage, I don't feel like I'm so lost that I forget everything and now I can forget the tune and the words. Like I still have to be focused, especially in a public setting. I think we can practice enough till we get very comfortable. And so it appears that we're lost and it's very easy. But I still think that, the responsibility has to wake us up during the execution.
That's a great answer.
Yes. I mean, there are minor details that can happen, and then it's obvious because we're human, and it's okay. It's okay. We should normalize that this is okay. All helps you not actually lose that all track, and so maybe having like a cheat sheet for your bhajan lyrics, or helping yourself, finding what helps you is important too, right? Because we're not all the same as well. So anything that would help you to keep that track and keep your focus there during the bhajan session is key. And I think like everyone should be on the same page in terms of your bhajan coordinator and instrumentalist to help you out, especially when you're a new singer, because I think that happens a lot to newbies.
Lose yourself in the bhajan, but don't lose the connection. Yeah. That's it.
I think what's nice is these guys have obviously lost themselves in the preparation too, right? They've done a lot behind the work to get themselves in that idea. That's the crux of it, I think, right? As how much you guys are doing in your private time. Okay, next question.
I just wanted to add, one more thing. Like,
please.
Personally, when I'm sitting in a bhajan session, sometimes I am singing, playing tabla, and like I have my phone or my iPad doing sound at the same time, right? So it's important to maintain focus during bhajan sessions.
Okay, this is a bit tricky. How should chorus singers follow the lead singers, particularly when they make an error? Rushi?
What I personally do is I try to take them back to the right lyric or the right tune. Because that's what the rest of the congregation will probably know as well, right?
Yeah.
So I try to follow back with the right tune, and then especially if it's the first speed, right? They'll generally make the error on the first iteration of that line. By the time the second iteration happens and they've heard the chorus sing it the right way, they'll correct themselves.
I'd love to take a stab at this. For example, if the lead singers, for example, makes a mistake, the chorus should already know the song, because ideally, and maybe this should not just be the ideal situation, you have practiced the song at the center and it's ready to be sung at the center, but way beforehand, right? So your chorus group already knows the song and can pick up from where you left off. If you didn't hit the right note, you fell off beat or anything, your chorus should never be surprised. They should know the song. So the practice beforehand makes it really, really important.
It all goes back to that car analogy when we're going from the airport to Prashanti late at night, right? If your headlights go out, everybody else's headlights will still guide the way.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thanks. Next question. What about people who cannot pronounce the words right based on their language? Is it not the intention that matters? I'm happy to go first. I'll tell you why, because this is my problem. Okay, I speak one language, English, and I just steal a bit of French from whatever we learn in school. So what I'm singing at a center, I don't often know, or I'm not often natively aware of. Okay, so I think it took me a second to say, is this like, should I sing it like a Canadian? Or I think the best way to do it is make sure that someone who understands Sanskrit and these languages can understand the words. And I think also as a Canadian, it's very tempting to do something in my own way, whether it's Spanish or Mandarin. We heard these comments, English. But I also have to think of, like, why did Baba initiate Sanskrit words? Like, why are they important? And actually, when I look into the history, I'll realize that actually that's the original language, and they are more powerful words. They are actually more efficient than the English language in some ways, so it just takes me a second to be, aware that there's more going on than maybe what meets the eye. And then doubling down and attacking that job properly to say, hey, look, it's my job to sing a Hindi song in Hindi, not like I'm faking it. You almost have to do the opposite job. So it's our responsibility, I would say double the responsibility if we can't speak the language, to make it clear.
Mhm.
Actually,
And
I
fun.
wanted
Go
to
ahead,
add about
brother.
yeah,
Go ahead,
wanted to
brother.
add about the languages, right? Um, I went to the bookstore in Prashanti once, Books and Publication Trust, and there was Sathya Sai Speaks, volumes 1 to 43, all lined up. And so they had the Hindi translations of Sathya Sai Speaks, and the stack of 43 books was about yay long, right? But then, and even the Telugu stack was about yay long, right? But then the 43 books for English were about this long. Because in the English language, the Indian languages such as like Telugu, which is Telugu and Hindi, which are heavily based in Sanskrit, the words used in those languages are so powerful that it takes perhaps 2 or 3 times the amount of words to translate those words into English.
Mhm.
Okay. We have a question related to um, instrumentalists. How loud should accompaniment be compared to the singers, especially when there's one singer and maybe 5 instruments there?
I think everything has to be balanced. There shouldn't be one overpowering the voice or the instrument, because even when you sing at the same time, like there's a lead singer, right? And to be able to hear each of them properly is important. And so also, even as an instrumentalist, to help the singer have a cue, especially for the harmonium, if they could play it at first to cue in the singer, that would be great. So all that is things and elements that are looked during the practice sessions, if that happens.
I'm going to answer it slightly different, and then Rushi and Erwin, you can more than chime in. But I think there has to be an order of operations to how the bhajan sounds. And so when you're looking at a layering piece, that voice, that lead voice, has to be far ahead of anybody else. And so the harmonium player and tabla, I think that this is based on noisy accompaniment, the question, right? So I think the answer should be that the harmonium tabla player have to sort of know their place, especially the harmonium guy, and just tune a little bit in terms of listening for the balance. So when you're an accompanist, you have to be listening for the balance. It can't be the mic guy's problem and you're just pushing in. It just sounds chaos, right? So I think knowing the balance is one. And then as a harmonium player or a tabla player, Rushi Bhai and Erwin and Janisha plays harmonium can double this, is if someone says, hey, man, I was listening to bhajans and that harmonium was fantastic, and all I could think about is the harmonium, that's not a compliment in any way. That just means that we've distracted from the whole point of the bhajan. So if they say, hey, you supported well, or I could hear the singer better because you played, or I learned the tune better because it was clear, that's different. But to overpower, this is not showmanship, right? That's not the time. It's the opposite, where we should do our thing, disappear, and then let the bhajan sort of highlight.
Mm-hmm. I will speak more specifically about the audio itself. Like, obviously, lead vocals first, and then tabla harmonium second in terms of the audio itself. But something that a lot of people sometimes say, hey, I feel tabla is too loud, I feel harmonium is too loud. You go to a tabla player, they'll say it's not loud enough. You go to a harmonium player, they'll say it's not loud enough. Because at the end of the day, it does come down to preference and taste. That said, of course, yes, we want to follow that. But something to keep in mind too. Let's say you are someone that has a taste of like, hey, I just want to hear the vocals itself. If it's a bhajan session that's going on for like a Khanda bhajan, like a few hours, you also have to understand that the people playing these instruments as well are putting so much energy. And sometimes when the volume is not loud enough, they lose that energy, which in turns drags the entire energy down too. So it is important that we also respect each other and understand like, hey, maybe the tabla just needs to be a little bit louder right now because they're driving that last hour of a Khanda bhajan.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can have a whole workshop on its own about how to do sound for bhajan.
Yeah.
True. And it's still also like remind yourself that like instrumentalists are to be accompanies, right? Like it's, as we've mentioned earlier, like it should be accompanying like the voice itself, right? So when we were talking about making sure that everything is well like elevated, if not like balanced, that's definitely one thing to note.
And even the singer should keep this in mind, right? If you have a line that's coming up, like if you're singing Buddha Mahavira Yeshu Sai, if you have a high line coming, Gita Veda Quran Ho Sai, if you're having a mic stand or you're holding the mic, try moving away from the mic a little bit so that the sound guy doesn't have to struggle and start, bringing your fader down.
Mhm.
So even as singers, we have to be conscious about how loud our voice is, right? And
Yeah.
if you're singing a low line, right, Buddha Maha, get really close to the mic. Of course, every sound person's biggest pet peeve is when, I actually have a mic right here, right? If you're holding a mic like this,
Oh, yes.
every mic has, if you open up the head, it has a receptor that's right here. So the sound has to be going in this way, right? Not like this. If you're gonna hold the mic like this, it's not gonna capture anything. Especially if you're holding it like this or like this, the mic should be. My thumb rule is about 3 fingers length away from the mouth, like this. That's the ideal length. 3 or 2 fingers. And of course, if you have a lower line, get a little closer. If you have a higher or louder line, move a little bit further away. But you should have that consciousness. And as I just showed you the anatomy of a typical microphone, the reception is always on the top, not at the sides. So please never do this because it's not going to pick up your sound at all. Always it should be perpendicular to the mouth.
Okay. Next question is on self-confidence and fear. It's a good one. So what if you practice 100 times, but when we get to the center, there's a fear in our mind, a lack of confidence. How do we overcome that?
Did you practice as a group? That would be my question. If you've practiced as a group, then
No, we didn't. I'm scared, man. I'm at the center. I'm scared. I'm not practiced as a group.
no, then you should practice as a group first. No, it happens. I think it happens to everybody, and the focus at that point is, hey, just obviously condition yourself before going into that session. It's like, hey, look, it's a big day. Maybe it's like a kind of Bhajan and it's a regional event. It's a big day, right? Like, and it happens to all of us, even the ones that sing on a regular basis. We all get a little bit like our hearts start beating a little faster than the tabla player is playing, like right before the Bhajan starts. It happens. And just, I think for me, myself, I take a moment and just look at Swami and just like close my eyes for a couple of seconds and just like control my breathing before I start. And eventually that just gets me into the Bhajan.
Yeah, you were just mentioning it like, thank you, Erwin, but breathing is key. In any situation anyway, it will come back to like recentering like your energy, recentering just your overall like I guess stress or uncertainty or uncomfortness. And that's normal. The body reacts like that. It's normal, and it's there to prepare you and engage you to actually perform, right? Like in terms of whenever you're doing an exam, whenever you're doing something for the first time, like you're driving for the first time on the highway, name it, you're always, the body always comes through those responses. But I think another point key is understanding what would help you basically come through that, like normalize that kind of feeling. Is it to go through the lyrics again with the bhajan coordinator? Is it to listening and recording yourself even more? Is it to actually take time to practice yourself a couple of more times, if not more weeks? Why not? So like check in with yourself. Okay, have I done everything that I need to actually feel comfortable to offer this at the Swami? And during your practices, once we were talking about how your mindset should be when it comes to bhajan offering, and that there's no difference whether you're practicing at home at the center, make sure that you offer always like with the same concept that as if you were presenting at the center. So like your body would automatically just feel like, hey, this is happening and it's true there. So those are just examples and tips, but hey, that I think like a lot of us can share many, I think, because we've all been there.
Yeah.
End of the day, this is not a performance, right? This is why doing sound for bhajans is so unique. Even, singing for bhajans, playing instruments for bhajans, and even from a technology perspective, doing sound for bhajans is very different, because at the end of the day, it's not a performance. The audience is the performer. The only real audience is Swami himself. So if you're feeling nervous about a bhajan, right, end of the day, just remember that at the end of the day, you are singing this for Swami and for Swami alone. He is the only person looking at you when you're singing. And if you've practiced 100 times, guaranteed you won't ever mess up. You'll have the self-confidence. It's just like taking a test. Half the times if I go into an exam and I feel nervous, it's because I haven't studied well enough. But if I've known, I have done my best, right? If you do your best, God will do the rest. So if we do our best, we practice our 100 times, then Swami just takes over. And at the end of the day, we're singing for him.
Yeah. And a last thing I can add here would be start with very simple things. Don't go into complexity. Like start with a short bhajan or a simple bhajan, a simple tune. That would actually be like, hey, I was able to like feel that, you know, everyone was on board. And actually that will slowly help you build on further for sure.
And the 100 times practicing means that you will get the bhajan perfect. And if you still haven't after 100 bhajans, sit with an instrumentalist, sit with somebody else. At least one extra person being with you will help you. Okay, yeah, there's somebody else listening to me now. Okay, I'll start getting it. Like you'll start putting yourself through that feeling, and you'll get to it eventually. Next question, maybe.
Yeah, the only thing I just want to add one quick thing is maybe just not be as hard on ourselves. Like I think we're all trying the same thing, which is doing our best and stuff. But you know, I think a comment I get a lot of times from our younger brothers and sisters is, "Oh man, I really didn't do a great job on that bhajan." And I find myself repeating that it doesn't matter in that way. Like we've done our practice, we've done our execution. Like we are offering the bhajan first, so that Baba, you're the inspiration, you're the one, you're the executioner, you're the listener, you're the one who receives anything. So I think at that point, it's a good way to learn in our real lives that we shouldn't have any fear, really, you know? And then in the same way that if it just blunders, because the day we feel like it's not, that's the day my voice is going to crack, of course. And on that day, I shouldn't feel so bad, just like I shouldn't feel so great on the days when bhajans are good. You know, that's also Swami's grace. So it doesn't make sense when things go well to say, oh, Baba's grace, and then we think that it's great. But when things don't go well, we also have to remember that's also Swami's grace. Couple last questions here. And if you have any final thoughts, people can type in the chat. We have a few minutes left. A funny sounding question, but I think a good one. Everyone knows what this person is getting at, but they said, explain on how when to switch to the head voiced opposed to the normal voice. Let's go backwards. Should we go back? I can go first. Okay, so I think by head voice, they mean singing in false. And I think everyone knows what that means. When you're singing maybe on your own and you get to that high line and it just didn't sound like the CD, you know? So what's the problem? What's going on there? Probably a couple of things, right? One is that we're probably singing in an extremely high scale where our voice just can't reach, right? And the second one is that I haven't rehearsed enough times to get there, right? So that's probably the issue. And I would say that I use this head voice or the false voice when I'm trying to make up for a lack of practice, when my voice is not stretched enough that I can sing that bit. In the comments, someone said, is there a standardized way for gents or ladies? I wouldn't call it, I wouldn't divide it by gender, because I know some ladies, Janisha, for example, sings higher than us three gents, you know, and some gents can't sing as high as, you know, whatever. So I think rather than looking at that way, we look at the bhajan itself and say, okay, look, what's the highest note? Am I capable of reaching that note? You know, am I capable of doing this? And then picking the bhajans accordingly, opposed to the opposite way. You know, you want to pick a dance routine that you can chew off, opposed to something overly complicated. Okay, I think a final question that I think is a good one is, what are some of your favorite bhajans? Maybe we can get a couple or two or three from each of you. Maybe you guys, maybe we can do it this way, where you can sing a line each and we can just go in successions. Keep it short, please. You don't want to...
Go ahead, Rushi. You can start.
Rushi can go all day, but go ahead.
My favorite bhajan, number one, you know, if like hypothetically, if like Swami were to physically appear before me and he asked me to sing a bhajan, the one I would definitely sing is Shambho Shankar Deva Bhole Baba Mahadeva Sai Baba Mahadeva.
Janisha, Erwin?
Mine is also a Shiva bhajan. For the longest time, even when I was a kid, so bolo bolo sab mil bolo Om Namah Shivaya. I love the high line for it, especially at the end. Om Namah Shivaya, Hari Om Namah Shivaya, and yeah, so on.
Janisha?
I myself is Harinam Gate Chalo. I mean, it's been there the entire presentation. Of course, I love the French variation a lot. It's something that is very dear to us. So, Hari Naam gaate chalo, Sai Naam gaate chalo, Madhav Govind Govind, Madhav Naam gaate chalo. And yours, Sanjay?
Oh, sorry. I think it's like asking you to pick like your favorite kid. I don't know. Rushi's answer is a good one.
I know.
I think Rushi's answer is a good one. If Baba's there, then what do you pick? But I think it's got to be Sai Bhajans bina sukh shanti nahi. I think that's the best. I don't know if we have any, we have some resources to go through. So
Yes,
let's do that. Let's do that before we forget, because we want to know what's next. We don't want to freeze here and then leave it here. We want to make sure going forward, we're picking at the resources, picking at each other's brains, keeping the train going, per se.
Mm-hmm. So thank you for all your questions. And if we didn't get to all the questions, we do apologize, but thank you. Bhajan resources.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Janisha, go for it.
We've covered most of this. So I think this loops in basically with what we were previously talking to about. So when it comes to like before practice sessions, and we've had those discussions going on in the breakout sessions too, like what would you do? How would you prepare? What do you think is important? What are the good qualities? But before a bhajan itself, practice is key. I think we've mentioned this here, and it will be definitely a takeaway message here that practice is very essential in all means, whether it's with yourself, whether it's with the group. It will just help you tune to the bestest that you could offer, right? And have that respect towards what you are willing to offer as a whole thing. Because if you just want to do your best, then the only way to get to that is basically to make sure that you go and over again, as many times that it will bring you comfort and entire like confidence, right?
Mm-hmm.
And go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, no, and there are ways that doing that practice becomes really handy. We've talked a lot about practice, but now really getting into the details of how you can practice and tools for it. Most of us have a smartphone these days, or we have access to a computer. So there are apps that have, if you even just go to your app store and just type in metronome or tanpura, you will see that there are a couple of apps that are like, there a lot of people, millions of people have downloaded them. So, and it's not just Sai Bhajan singers. So just download those tonight itself. Just take some time and browse on your phone. And you should see that there are some apps. Some of these apps allow you to put a beat. So a metronome, for example, will allow you to go faster or slow down, right? So if you feel like, oh, I want to sing a bhajan, I want to learn how to sing it at the right speed, turn on the metronome, right? Speed it up if you feel like, okay, I'm going to do second speed, let me speed it up. The same thing for the tanpura, right? Finding your key of the song, set the note, try to match the tone and stuff. But yeah, sorry, Janisha, go for it.
No problem. But even the resources that we're going to have, so thank you for adding on to that. They have all the baselines for you to know, okay, where are we starting? What is the tempo, etc., to actually have a guidance. And also, like, when it comes to preparations, make sure that you send your bhajan lyrics ahead of time, so you know the layouts and the slides are prepared ahead, and that everyone would be able to follow. But make note that this helps for the entire group to be focused at one place too, so we won't be through our phones looking at the lyrics, etc. So it's basically to keep that focus and structure and frame, like in a frame matter. And also, like, when it comes to like understanding and the meaning, we've already looked at that all of those essentials to help you uplift the bhava and the thala and the raga and the actual like overall state of a bhajan. Next slide.
And that's all before the bhajan session itself. And on the day of the session, it's game day, right? Be there ahead of time. just be respectful to the people that are actually showing up early, right? So you also show up early sometimes. The center needs help to set up some things. Be there ahead of time, get yourself in that state of mind, and be open and positive. Like, come in with the proper attitude, right? We had a breakout session earlier where someone says that they said every bhajan session is good for me because I always come in making sure that I keep a positive mindset before going in. That's great. That's honestly great. Make sure you are prepared, because when you are gonna sing later on, that if you don't have a clear mind, if your head's all your headspace is all over the place, people might notice that in the energy, right? And you are there not only to sing your song. I think this is probably one of the most important parts, because today we focused a lot about leading a bhajan itself. You're not there to just sing your song and then go. You're there to sing your song, but to also participate, clap. You're chorusing every other person's bhajan. Something that I like to say to people from our center or close friends is like, hey, or young adults, is if you're only showing up to sing your bhajan, you should not be singing, right? If you're showing up to sing everybody else's bhajans, then yes, obviously you should be singing as well. And just coming there is like, know your responsibilities. Just understand all these two other points. It should be good. Sanjay, you want to take the last one?
On Bhajan Tutor or the last after?
No, after the session.
Yeah, we saw Bhajan coordinators should reflect what went well and what didn't, and why they do what they do. What do you mean by stereotype of Bhajan coordinator, bro?
A lot of times we think about the bhajan coordinator itself. We often say, oh, this bhajan coordinator is like, the bhajan coordinator is like a mean person, or no, the bhajan coordinator, we should break that stereotype. Let's make the bhajan coordinator a person who's approachable, someone who you would be able to have a conversation with, and someone who you can expect to tell you, hey, this song doesn't fit you. You should sing this song instead. Right? So we should now build that new stereotype as a bhajan coordinator, to be open, to be engaging with everybody else. That's what I mean by that.
Excellent point. That loving is the bit that we have to double down on what Baba expects, because we have to be understanding in that space. Yeah, good point.
Just want to add one sentence here. It's called a bhajan group for a reason, right? We're a bhajan group. There's not bhajan individual or anything. It's a group effort. So you should always, come ready to participate in the session as a whole, and not just, sing your bhajan and leave.
For sure. Rushi, why don't you guide us through this one a little bit?
Sure. So we have various, throughout the workshop, we've gotten lots of questions as to, what resources we have for bhajans. And there's plenty of them out there. Of course, this is made by Radio Sai, the Bhajan Tutor. As Brother Sanjay had mentioned earlier, this tool actually lays out the specific notes of the bhajan. If you don't have the full screenshot here, but if you were to scroll down, it gives you the note by note breakdown of that particular bhajan. It also gives you foray into the raga of that bhajan. What is the importance of that raga? Why is that raga chosen to compose that bhajan? And sometimes, if available, they also provide the story of how that bhajan is composed. And that's another technique of developing bhava and bhajans. If we know in what situation that composer put that bhajan together, it may help us to develop some bhava in that bhajan as well. And so here, they give you the lyrics. They literally just walk through and speak through the whole lyrics of the bhajan. Lyrics, then they do the tune. They sing the tune without any harmonium or percussive accompaniment, just a tanpura. They just sing through the tune. And then they expound on the raga, and then they play the mandir version of the bhajan, right? The Prashanti Mandir version, which is the gold standard, as we said, for every bhajan that when we're singing. Then they do a little discourse on the meaning of the bhajan, of the bhajan as well. So it's a great tool, and they have a couple hundred bhajans on there. You can just Google it, Radio Sai Bhajan Tutor, and great resource that you can find. Yeah.
Awesome. Let me move on to the next one. Oh yeah,
couple more here.
Yeah, another one that Brother Rushi and myself we really enjoy is the Brindamritam app. And this is something that you might have to pay for on the App Store, but it's just like a couple dollars. And honestly, I've never bought an app in my life, this was my first one, and it's by far my best purchase in terms of apps that I've ever done. The way, like, I don't know if you guys can see everything here, but I may even show you my the Bhajan app in a little bit here. This is the loading screen of the app itself, and there are so many different ways that you can choose to categorize bhajans. You can choose by deity. So let's say it's like, I don't know, Ganesh Chaturthi coming up. Okay, let's click on Ganesh bhajans. Let's find out a bunch of list of bhajans. The app has the lyrics. It talks about the raga. It talks about what, like, the type of beat that the tabla player will normally play it. It has a gender based key. So let's say women can sing in this key, gents can sing in this key. There's so many different things that this app does. One of my favorite features of this one is of this app as well. It doesn't show it on the screen itself, but there's a section dedicated for Balvikas kids, and no other apps have that. You can click on it and you will see a bunch of bhajans for SSC, and there's like hundreds. So it's a really good one if you want to take a look into that. The other one is, and you can probably see it right here in Nagar Sankirtan. So there are bhajans dedicated for that, to bring that energy. So yeah, lots of options available in terms of resources for bhajan apps. I guess we didn't say the lyrics.
A lot of the bhajans built in right into the bhajan page. They have the audio for a lot of the bhajans in there.
Yeah.
And this app is unique because it was developed by the Brindavan Bhajan group, and they have lots of bhajans in there that are specific to Brindavan. There's lots of bhajans that were composed by the Brindavan Bhajan group. So there's quite a few bhajans in there that you may or may not have even heard before. So it's really nice.
I think what people are taking out of this, especially folks who didn't know, is just how overwhelmingly structured and categorized bhajans are, and how well, defined things are. The word that we use for that is classical. So it's very humbling to know that we're part of such a big genre of music, like Rushi Bhai was mentioning earlier. Yeah.
Sweet. This is probably the most used one across the country, across North America. But Sai Rhythms is, I believe we actually have a link for it. So let's see. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Awesome. So this is great. Let's do an exercise. Okay, I searched the song Sai Nama Bolo. So if you search any bhajan, so this is a way that you can provide your bhajans to your bhajan coordinator, right? Search up a bhajan, you can see the list. You're like, okay, yeah, this is the one that I want. You can copy it. You can listen to the actual recording. On top of that, most of these bhajans, yeah, there we go. It'll give you the translation underneath. It'll give you all this type of information. And if you want to learn a little bit more about the actual words that are being used, there's a breakdown of all sorts of different words in there, right? So super useful. This is just online itself. It's an SSIO app, Sai Rhythms. So if you ever just need to look up at a bhajans, a lot of times I go find the bhajan. I say on Google itself, for example, I'd say Sai Nama Bolo bhajan lyrics. Sai Rhythms is probably the first one that will pop up. So if you don't know of this is super valuable. Let me go back to the and the last resource is your bhajan coordinator, right? If you don't have access to internet, or you don't want to buy an app or whatever it is, go to your bhajan coordinator. Outside of these things, they probably have some sort of knowledge that they can share with you, in terms of how you can find your next bhajan, or how to sing this and whatnot. So yeah, there are so many methods now. Like Sanjay over this process of preparing for this, he's kept saying, hey, we're not trying to teach people how to reinvent the wheel here, right? All of this is already available for us, and this is just another extension of how this is all available for us. Okay, but that is it for all of us.
Thank you all so much for this opportunity. I think brother Sanjay, brother Erwin, sister Janisha, and myself are all so passionate about Sai Bhajans, and we're very grateful for the opportunity to share, just a speck of that with all of you today. So we hope, we continue to grow in this field. And as I like to say, may our entire lives become an Akhanda Bhajan. Sairam.
Sairam.
Sarah.
Sairam.
Thank you for everyone. Thank you, Sarah.
Sairam.
Thank you. Sairam.
Sairam, everyone, it's not over yet. Just wanted to give us a minute. So thank you so much, Brother Sanjay, Rushi, and Erwin, and Sister Janisha for just eloquently answering so many of these questions. I now invite Brother Sridhar, our Assistant National Devotional Coordinator, for the vote of thanks, followed by Aarti. So please do stick around.
Yeah, just few more minutes. Yeah, sure. My most humble pranams at the sweetest Lord, Swami. I'm sure it's like, whose name we sang in so many forms of bhajans, and all of us like present here, we have a special place for him at our place, at all our homes, and he lives in those pictures, he lives in those chairs, and then most importantly, he is the light of all of our lives, and then sitting in our hearts, guiding at every moment. And he is the source, gave us the thought about this workshop, and then he is the doer of the entire work. And we can only express our utmost gratitude to Swami for making us, using us as instruments, like, for making it to realize a wonderful workshop today. As the workshop was like, coming to an end, like they were singing so many bhajans, and then there was one bhajan which is like ringing in my ears, like Mother, oh Mother Sai Ma. And especially the last lines, how can we thank you, dear Sai Ma, for all your patience and love, Sai Ma. Yeah, you must have found already, it's like I'm not a great bhajan singer, and these workshops are just for me. It's like, for especially for people like me. But thank you, Swami. It's like, thank you so much for making realize like such a wonderful, beautiful workshop like today. It's like, thank you. And most importantly, thank you, Brother Rushi, is like our guest speaker, and your wonderful insights about the bhajans, and then the examples what you were quoting, and the amount of details actually you went through. It's just amazing. And thank you. How beautifully is like, do you explain the concept of like basically Sankirtan, and then the importance of all the bhava, raga, and talas, like, and especially is like taking like 1 hour almost like for clarifying the questions for every one of us actually. That's really is like, thank you so much, like how to practice the bhajans and live examples when you're singing. It was so beautiful. I know we really enjoyed every moment of it. Yeah. I should especially is like mention, but Brother Erwin, Sanjay is like, and Sister Janisha is like, for taking out your time. I know it's like how many evenings you sacrifice to actually come down to actually prepare the content together, and then working it out with Brother Rishi as like making the full content ready and then presenting it today. I don't have to tell like anybody is like, they all saw you is like how beautifully it has been done. Thank you so much for all the efforts. What you kept, and may Swami immensely bless you, all of you. Yeah, thank you so much for that. And talking about this workshop, like, first time we ever had such a big participation from both from the in-person centers as well as like, online in here. And right from the beginning, like, on behalf of like the SSIO Canada, our sincere gratitude to each and every one of you, like, who joined us today. Thank you so much. Like, you have all the contributions and participations like for the workshop. Like, we really appreciate all your efforts. From last 1 year or so, we've been actually planning, all the devotional coordinators are meeting, and then we were trying to find out what exactly we should be doing. And we've been planning, and from the planning, like, we had like representatives from across Canada, as like, Brother Aarti, it's like Sister Aarti from Edmonton, Brother Pradeep from York Center, and then we also have Brother Srinivas, like, joining from Vancouver. So they've been sitting together, planning so much. Like, thank you all for joining, being part of the core group, and then making it realized today. And if the entire program today went on smooth, it's just because there's a team sitting behind, and their hands are continuously working, the media team, making us like, the whole thing like went on smooth. Thank yous like the media team led by Sister Pamela and the Kirtiha, Anujas, like and brother Nitin and brother Sitaram and Sister Nitya. Thank you so much for all your effort. Like today is like it just we could able to conclude like the whole program so smoothly. And I'm sure like there are many stars like who are not seen online, like they are just sitting like back in somewhere in the Edmonton Center or probably in the York Center. But like thank you for all of you, like the media coordinators from there, whether it's like Amrita's, like Abhishek from Edmonton or Akhil. Thank yous like making all the dry runs and making sure that like everything actually worked out today. And we also sincerely thank all the presidents and the coordinators who actually is like well coordinated the whole thing. And not to forget everybody who is sitting in the Edmonton Sci Center, we can still see you, though you are very tiny. But all the people from the York Center, thank you for joining in person. This is a great experience for us. And there is no way I can mention all the contributions of all the people coming together and making the whole thing happen. But I can only wish like the nothing really is like goes away from Swami's notice. Like he is actually is like looking at every contribution and everyone who contributed. Like may Swami is like immensely bless you all. Thank you so much. From the devotional team, myself and Sister Kamala or Brother Raman, we say thank you so much and have a great rest of the day. We'll have Aarti and then we'll have a conclusion. Thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you, brother, for organizing everything.
Thank you.
Om Jai Jagadish Hare Swami Sathya Sai Hare Bhakta Jana Samrakshak Bhakta Jana Samrakshak Pati Maheshwara Om Jai Jagadish Hare Shashivadana Srikara Sarva Pranapate Swami Sarva Pranapate Ashrita Kalpalatika Ashrita Kalpalatika Apad Bandhava Om Jai Jagadish Hare Mata Pita Guru Devamu Mariyantayu Neeve Swami Mariyantayu Neeve Nada Brahma Jagannatha Nada Brahma Jagannatha Nagendra Shayana Om Jai Jagadish Hare Omkara Rupa Ojasvi O Sai Mahadeva Sathya Sai Mahadeva Mangala Harati Anduko Mangala Harati Anduko Mandara Giridhari Om Jai Jagadish Hare Narayana Narayana Om Satya Narayana 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 Om Narayana Narayana Om Satya Narayana Narayana Om Satya Narayana Narayana Om Jai Sadguru Deva Narayana Narayana Om Satya Narayana 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 Om Narayana Narayana Om Satya Narayana Narayana Om Satya Narayana Narayana Om Jai Sadguru Deva Narayana Narayana Om Satya Narayana 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 Om Narayana Narayana Om Satya Narayana Narayana Om Satya Narayana Narayana Om Jai Sadguru Deva Om Shanti 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 जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी
Sukhino bhavantu samasta loka Sukhino bhavantu samasta loka Sukhino bhavantu Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May all the beings in all the worlds be happy. May all the beings in all the worlds be happy. May all the beings in all the worlds be happy. Peace